People. When did you know for sure it was over? I went on a business trip this weekend and got home at 6:25 a.m. I didn't want to wake her and the kids, so I sat quietly in the living room watching TV. A few minutes later, I get a text from her. "Thanks for staying over, babe. I love sleeping next to you." Obviously, I wasn't here last night. I'm still on the couch and haven't responded. I think she went back to sleep and had no idea she accidentally texted me. Monday. Number one, I had to go to work before confronting her. I think it was better anyway, since it gave me time to think about what to say instead of rushing to anger. Number two, I asked my assistant to go to the 7-Eleven next door and see if they have Shiner Bock. If they don't, I'll ask him to go as far as Publix, for science. Number three, she finally texted me at work and said that her girlfriend stayed over. I didn't respond. 3 p.m. EST. Tuesday. Number one, I left for work last night and went to dinner with one of my work partners. Number two, I didn't say a word to my wife when I came to bed. In the morning, I mentioned the text after I woke up. I told her I was surprised she would use that language with a girlfriend. Number three, she broke down and admitted that she had a platonic girlfriend and a not-so-platonic ex-boyfriend over while I was away. Number four, she admitted it wasn't the first time. Number five, I calmly told her I would have to think about how I feel about the situation and let her know whether we would separate. She really outdid herself with that text. Talk about a major oopsie. Story 2. So a couple of years back, I noticed my then wife started acting strangely at night. She would stay up very late, well after I was already in bed, and had her phone by her side at all times, even going to the bathroom, walking from the living room to the kitchen, etc. This obviously caught my attention because she had never behaved like this in the previous 4 years we had been married. So I started my investigation by looking at her phone bill to see if she was texting anyone. To my horror, I found hundreds and hundreds of texts being sent to the same number every night, usually beginning around the time we would go to bed, plus probably 15 to 20 picture messages per night. I cross-referenced the phone number she'd been texting and it was nobody that I knew. This eliminates all of her family and any close friends, as I have all of their numbers stored in my phone as well. So my next step is to try and steal her phone and read her text messages. Not easily done since she's watching her phone like a hawk. But a few days later I finally managed to get my hands on it, only to find her entire inbox is completely empty. She's deleting all of her texts throughout the day. What is she hiding? I look in the pictures to see if I can find anything scandalous, but I get the same result. All of her pics are deleted. I put the phone back and plotted my next step. Being the resourceful man that I am, I downloaded a simple file recovery program and waited for the right time to strike. She had gotten to the habit of coming to bed around 2 a.m. and sleeping with her phone underneath her pillow. Again, a behavior she had never once displayed at any other time during our marriage. So I wait for her to come to bed and fall asleep, then I slowly extract the phone from under her pillow without waking her up. A feat that probably took me 20 minutes. I hurried into the other room and started running the file recovery software, hoping to God that I find thousands of pictures of her dog and nothing more. The scan takes well over 10 minutes, and as you can imagine, it felt more like 10 hours. My heart is jumping through my chest and I'm waiting for her to come walking into the computer room at any second. Finally, the scan is complete, so I go back into the room and replace her phone. I return to the computer to assess the damages, and basically, that is when my heart fell out of my chest. There were hundreds of pictures of my wife. As I'm looking at them, I realize that she has taken some of them to places that we were together on dates, like the bathroom of a restaurant we were at, and I've never felt so sick in my entire life. It was the strangest feeling because part of me was so disgusted in knowing she had done this to me, yet part of me was strangely awakened by all these pictures of her. I was so baffled by what I'd just seen that I walked into my room and went to sleep without saying a word to her. Even though she was the one who was cheating, it took me 3 days to build up the courage to tell her I knew what was going on and that I wanted a divorce. Crazy to think about. When I read the line from OP's story, "Thanks for staying over, babe, I love sleeping next to you," I got that exact same feeling again. I guess that is why I was compelled to share. Cheers. Story 3. Daughter of a mother who cheated here. I can't believe how many other people have gone through this as well. In my early 20s, still living at home, I used to tell my then boyfriend that I felt like my mom was cheating on my stepfather. My darling ex called me paranoid, but eventually, it actually came true. She met a man online on a forum for an author they both enjoy. They carried it to real life and used to spend nights up the coast together. My stepfather actually used to pay for her to get away for a night by the beach on her own, which I thought was pretty cool. But, yeah, she wasn't resting. I found out because she started to obsess over her email, hiding it like crazy. Her computer was on our kitchen table for Pete's sake. It was always on and open to something. One day, I was minimizing her email to look something up for school, and the words, "I would love to leave my husband for you," jumped out at me. My stepfather is more of a father to me than my bio dad. She knew that too. I hated being that position. Here she had me, the eldest, and two sons, one who was barely 4 years old. I did the only thing I could possibly think of doing. I printed her emails to him in the case of a custody battle. I also started emailing this guy directly. She would tell me, screaming, that I would make this or our family fall apart because of my spiteful emailing. I was furious and hurt. I dealt with her bipolar, crazy screaming, and oppressive nature for so long. That's how she repaid us. Finally, one day, moving out at this point and living in Washington with my dad. What a joke that was. Another story for another thread. Anyway, one night my stepfather calls me and tells me that the wife of, we'll call him Peter, called my stepfather and asked him if his wife would please stop meeting her husband on my stepfather's birthday. Great. Just great, Mom. They did attempt marriage counseling. They'd loved each other madly at one point. I had hope, for a bit. Finally, one night she called me and said they were going to separate. I was devastated, deeply. Eventually, my mother came to realize her mistakes and had enough perspective of what her life on her own would be, and she tried to get back with my stepfather. Eventually, her depression kicked in big time, and she literally wasted away and took her own life. I adored my mother. She was so complex, beautiful, a stunning woman, but she caused a lot of hurt and grief, and love and joy. Every emotion she conjured in others was always 1,000 times more explosive compared to other normal people. Story 4. When I was 14, my father caught my mother cheating for the third time. This had happened twice before, when I was 8, and when I was 12. The times before, he would always talk to me and my siblings individually and explain what had happened. He would tell us that they might get a divorce, but he would try and stick it out for us because she didn't have a great father and he didn't want us to grow up on our own like he did. He was an immigrant and came here illegally at 17, but he's legal now. Well, one day it finally came. The divorce was real. I remember telling him that he wouldn't be living with us anymore, that they were finally getting a divorce and that he didn't care who I decided to live with, because he knew how much I loved my mother. He never treated her with disrespect, even after all she put him through, because she gave him the greatest gifts he could have asked for. Us. When all was said and done, my 3 siblings and I ended up with our father, solely on the fact of how great of a man he was. He just kept telling us that nothing would change and that we were still a family, if not a better one for what we had been through. And the thing that stuck out to me the most about my father's handling of the situation was how he trusted us with all the information, allowing us to make our own decisions, and how he respected my mother through it all. She would call him a piece of trash and a good-for-nothing carpenter, but he just took it, knowing that at all times we were watching. He explained to us that what he was doing was showing us a lesson, that even when someone has done all they can to hurt you, you still have certain people in your life that you have to be strong for. And he set a good example for us to respect others. My father's unwavering love and support through this whole ordeal is what made me stronger as a person. I highly advise that you try and spend quality time with your children every weekend. Teach them how to fish, or just take them out for ice cream. Try to make things as normal as possible, because that's the best way you can show that you care. Tell them that you love and just hug them and hold them in your arms whenever you get the chance. My father does all of this and more, and he's the reason I work so hard. As I said earlier, I'm currently 16 and I'm a high school debater. I've been at Dartmouth College almost all summer at the best debate in the country to just make my dad proud. But I can say I'm going to college for free to show him that I'm using all the life skills he instilled in me. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't let anything that is going on in your life affect you, your children, or your business. My father would get asked by his coworkers how he could keep it all together, how, after a woman has taken almost everything she could from his heart, how could he still whistle like nothing was wrong? And when he told them why, he would always say it was because of us, his children. He was just trying to show us that life is something you control and that other people can only ruin it if you let them. So I just hope you can react with the same mindset that my father had. To be honest with your children, not to make their own decisions and just tell them and show them every day that you love them. This doesn't mean getting them everything you want, but just spending time together doing things you all enjoy. I have the greatest respect for men like you and my father, and hope to someday be like the both of you. Story 5. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me as well. Sad thing is, I knew half of her college friends, so one of her friends one night told me she was seen around school holding hands with someone else. I didn't believe the friend, as I thought she was just causing trouble. Anyways, a few weeks pass and another one of her friends says the same thing involving the same guy. They were seen kissing out in the courtyard. All this time, I told her to call me the second they were spotted and to tell me their location. She did about a few weeks after this one evening. She told me they were having dinner outside and she was a block or so roughly away watching them for me. Like an episode of Cheaters, I hopped in my car and stepped on it. I showed up right as their meals were coming out to the table. I remember the look of fear in her face as she was holding his hand across the table. I pretty much walked up right when they were in the middle of a hand lock. I said, Hey, what are you two doing? She had nothing to say, so I turned to the date and said, What the hell are you doing with my girlfriend? He could not come up with anything to say as I looked him in the eyes. He knew at any second I could flip that table over and go Jackie Chan on him. Anyways, I said we're through and walked away. She proceeded to call me that evening over 50 times, with 20 being texts saying she was sorry, she loved me, etc. I never returned the calls or texts. As far as I know, she got hit by a train and passed away on impact. Kidding. I honestly haven't seen her nor spoken to her in years. Her friends tell me she was in a relationship with said guy for a few months. He decided to hurt her and she ended up filing a police report. She also got harmed like a week or two after moving in with him. Story 6. Well, she got engaged today out of the blue. In my junior year of high school, Hannah and I started dating. A year and a half later, at the beginning of my freshman year of college, she broke up with me, essentially because she wasn't sure if she wanted a relationship or at least not one with me. She was unhappy and didn't want to hold me back and told me she wanted to be single, at least until she was done with college. That was awful, but eventually I moved on. About a year later, I started dating someone else from the college we both attended. A month ago, however, she broke up with me as well after we had dated for a year and a half. Recently, though, I considered asking Hannah if she'd want to catch up after I'd returned home from summer school. She was my first girlfriend, and I don't think I ever completely got over her. I was hoping to grab coffee or something, catch up, and see if she still had feelings for me as well. The idea was sounding good, as I thought of it this morning. Then I checked Facebook. She had no relationship status since we broke up. Today, I discovered she was engaged to one of our good friends, who apparently was recently more than that. My honest reaction was, what the heck? Like I said, this was out of the blue. She indicated that she wanted to focus more on school than relationships, and there was no indication that she was dating anyone, but now that she's graduated college, she's engaged. I was pretty crestfallen, as I realized that there's officially no chance of rekindling the old flame. Oh, and this really crushed me as my grandma, with whom I've always been really close, just passed away yesterday. Story 7. For me, getting dumped by a cheater was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was in the middle of moving to Mexico to be with a woman I'd been seeing for a few years. Packing, canceling utilities, saying goodbye to friends, all that. My small business was doing poorly, mainly from neglect and bad economy or luck. So times were tight and it was taking way longer than expected for me to finish up, but it was happening slowly, and real love always waits, right? I spent most of the spare money I had whenever I could to spend time with her, but I'd also saved up. Sold off some crap I didn't need and was planning to surprise her with a trip to Hawaii, which she loved, and a marriage proposal when I returned with my next load of boxes. I even had a guy making a ring I designed. So, on my last trip there, I left her some money for her bills and returned to my old home to pack up more things one last time. While I was back in my old place packing, she stopped answering phone calls and emails. Her sister didn't know where she was or wouldn't tell me. After a week of stressing me out with worry, she sent me a photograph from Italy and a sorry. It took a while to get the full story. She had got tired of waiting, met some Italian guy on the internet, and took his money to fly there to meet him. Presumably the money she took from me helped too. She spent a week with him, then went to see some other Italian guy she also met online and decided to be with him instead. She told me she was in love with the first one and then the second one, and then I sort of stopped paying attention. She sent me a lot of long emails explaining why all the awful things she did were my fault somehow. I can't imagine how her head was working. I spent a couple of weeks in shock that she could do something so rash or stupid, and stunned by the timing. But even though I was stunned, I immediately knew I dodged. I would have done anything for her just 1 week earlier, but wow. From future wife to liar to thief to cheat. Literally, on all accounts. All in 1 week. Never got back a single piece of property that had left in her house, but it turned out to be worth the cost. Signs from the flying spaghetti monster started telling me right away how it wasn't meant to be. My business improved dramatically in the weeks and months following, even though I did almost nothing new or different. Amazing good luck, a new big client, and a new surprise investor all in 6 weeks. A few months later, I sold it, cashed out, and ended up a lot more financially well off than I'd ever been in my life. So much that I could start thinking of retiring on a beach somewhere, easily. Even better, I met an amazing woman just a month after that, introduced by a mutual friend who turned out to be so right. If my ex saw her, she'd hide from jealousy. While my ex hated her own smallness and bad hair, I didn't mind. My new girl is tall, blonde, incredibly pretty, and is even 10 years younger. Even better for me, she's sweet and honest. It is actually worth all the time and attention I can give her. It's like the world conspired to show me how much better a life could be. Story 8. I've had a similar situation. I was with a girl for 10 years, married for 3 of them, when I found out she had been sleeping with the MC from our wedding for a number of months. I've never felt so alone in my life as the moment I realized that I would once again be striking out on my own instead of as a member of a team. I was lucky in that we did not have children, which would obviously complicate matters immensely. My advice would be to start by having a conversation with your wife, before lawyering up, before moving assets, before starting a war. This woman is going to be a part of your life until you or she passes away. This is going to be a ridiculously emotional time for both of you, and your actions over these next few months will dictate the nature of the relationship with the mother of your children for the rest of your lives. I know the title of the thread is, When Did You Know For Sure That It Was Over? And maybe you do know for sure that it is over. There is also the possibility that this infidelity could be the catalyst for much needed change in your marriage. Upon the breakdown of my marriage, I had many people share their experiences with infidelity with me, a number of which I was astonished to hear about. Many couples have experienced the same thing as you, and many have used it as an opportunity, a wake-up call, that the amount of time and effort they were putting into their relationship was insufficient. This is not the easy way. It is possible that you could take this road and that with work and counseling, you could have a more loving, committed relationship than ever before. It's also very possible that this is impossible, and that is okay too. The important thing to realize is that this decision doesn't have to be made today, or this week, or even this month. Think before you act. Emotional reactions are your enemy at this point. Strive to avoid rash decisions. Take slow, deliberate steps toward the life you would like to have. If there is no chance of reconciliation, it is still in your best interest to maintain as amicable a relationship with your soon-to-be ex-wife as possible. Take the high road. Take it like a man. If you start a war at this point, there are only 2 winners, each of your lawyers. The losers in this situation are you, your ex-wife, and your kids. The lawyers have a vested interest in convincing each of you to fight over every possible thing, as every dispute you have is billable time for them. As you fight over how to split things up, what you're splitting up is being divided between your lawyers, and any remaining amount of goodwill you and your ex have for each other will disappear as well. This road spends your money while adding to the bitterness you both feel, at the expense of your children. Have a frank and open conversation with your wife. Be willing to hear what she says, despite your ears being filled with rage. If divorce is the only option, realize that your relationship with your kids and their well-being is far more important than who gets the good china. Stuff is stuff and can always be replaced. Don't allow your hurt and anger to blind you to what is important right now, your relationship with your kids. I wish you all the best. Know that you aren't alone. This happens to people all the time, and it's the worst. Hopefully at some point you can look back on this in a positive light, either because of the new strong bond you have with your wife or because you are no longer stuck in a relationship that wasn't working anyway. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 9. I know right now you're a massive ball of mixed emotion. Anger, confusion, fear, sadness. Left is right and up is down. But if you love your wife and you don't think she's ever had a history of cheating before this, please hear me out. My wife went through the pain that you're feeling right now, because I was the cheating schmuck. We didn't have kids, and aside from the house that was underwater and would have been easy to give up to a bank, there wasn't much we would have even had to fight over. We would have had as clean of a no-contest divorce as anyone ever could have, but we worked it out, and are happier than we've ever been. I could go into a lot of details as to what caused my affair, but creating a list would just start sounding like excuses. I'll just say that, assuming that text is what it seems to be, there are a ton of things that could have triggered what has happened to your marriage. The key is understanding what caused the affair, and counseling is the way to do that. I spent a year in counseling to fully learn and understand the shortcomings in my life, many dating far back to my childhood. It made me vulnerable to doing what I did. I wasn't out hunting for an affair, and maybe your wife wasn't either. Sometimes, a desperate need for validation or attention in some seemingly innocent chat can slowly balloon into being psychologically lost in where you belong. My wife stayed with me through many of the sessions, and though she didn't have to, she chose to reach out and understand what I learned too. I can't ever claim to have experienced the pain that my wife did, but when I saw and truly realized how much hurt that I caused her, I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider ending it all to make it stop. Over time and understanding, and it took about a year, we learned to communicate better than we've ever could before. We're closer than we ever were. And I would never, ever dream of hurting her again. We have a relationship now that I think few couples ever get to. So, it is possible to pull this together. We are proof. Now, that said, if you think that's a possibility at all, here are my recommendations. Don't call family or mutual friends, yet. You need a support system. But if you don't have any friends you can truly vent to right now that aren't shared across the board, then you'll get the best support out of a psychiatrist. Family tends to have a hard time holding grudges, and if things fall apart, then mutual friends will have to pick a side. It's not time for that yet. If she confirms an affair when confronted about the text, then do everything you can to stay audibly calm. Tell her to be honest. You want the truth. She'll have a much harder time telling you the truth if you're on fire. You will be on fire, but you want the truth. You'll have a lot of time in the coming weeks to lash out. If you want to try to save things, don't try to have her make up an explanation on the spot. Try to get to a counselor to have those conversations. It's too easy to stumble on your words and thoughts in these first few days. You want the truth. You want to know everything, every detail. What size was he? How many times? How many orgasms? What positions? Everything. It's human nature. Get the truth, but try hard to resist this temptation to know everything. In the end, it is better to focus on the emotion that caused the affair rather than the details. Hearing details is like reading an intense novel. Your mind will paint a picture and you will spend a year trying to get that picture out of your head. She does need to commit to you that he's gone, forever. I called my affair and did this with my wife listening. She's got to know immediately that this was a huge mistake. Huge. And she needs to pick what's important now. If she can't realize her mistake immediately, then your situation isn't the same as mine. I wish I could make the situation go away. I'm so sorry this happened to you. Just as I'm so sorry I ever hurt my wife. But please, consider what I've said. You already have so much with your wife, and while I know I'm the outlier here, I'm living proof that it's possible to come out stronger in the end. Best of luck, man. Fingers crossed for you. Story 10. I was suspicious when she started moving money around to accounts without my name on them, so I installed a keylogger monitoring software on the laptop we shared. Found out she was meeting an old college friend when she claimed she was going to the gym. Discovered it on Mother's Day 2010 and confronted her. I'm now divorced and an awesome single dad. It was hard. I kept hurting myself looking at the texts she had been sending. Verizon website shows the sent or received but not the data, and eventually just had to walk away and realize I'm better off not knowing all the details beyond what I already knew. I didn't call her a cheating witch in court. I was very civil and for the sake of my son, continue to be so. I've changed my life for the better. The best part is having time to exercise and enjoy life. Seriously, being active has made life much, much better. For a little levity, women are like hurricanes. When they show up, they're wild and wet, and when they leave, they take your house and car. As much as we may hate the hurricanes, it just makes the sunny day after that so much brighter. Good luck, man. The hurricane analogy is spot on. A bit too accurate, if you ask me. Story 11. As a wife who got chlamydia and subsequently fertility issues resulting from it, for my cheating husband, I think the posters who have the strike hard and fast advice are completely correct. I wallowed in the emotional discovery and apologies once I found out. He went back to her after a month of marriage counseling. Some guy was in your bed, your space, your home, serving as the protector of your hearth and children. You were away on business, earning money to undoubtedly provide her with a lifestyle that you were proud to furnish. She took that as an opportunity to render you a shell of a man. As a divorced, insane person now, I went through a lot of therapy to be at the place I am now. Act rationally and calmly. Don't get into games, keep things as smooth as possible for your children's sake, and dissolve the marriage like a bad business deal. Knowing to look at it that way saved my relationship with my children. They still felt loved and protected. Let her go. There's life beyond hurt and pain and anger and feeling as though you're less of a man. You're not. Good luck. Story 12. Reading all these stories about women cheating on their husbands made me want to share something from the opposite side. I divorced my husband last year. I didn't cheat on him or anything of that nature. He was just very mentally cruel and controlling, and after 2 years of being in a miserable marriage, I'd had enough. During the whole process, though, he tried to turn it around on me and make everything my fault. He even started telling friends and family that I cheated on him with a friend of ours. So, long story short, we got divorced. It's messy and a huge pain. But a few months later, as I'm trying to put my life back together and finally starting to feel better about myself, I find something that angers and upsets me to the boiling point. I'm going through piles of papers and books, and I find one of his old notebooks that he used to keep with him every day for college classes and work. I never really thought anything of them, but I flipped one open, not realizing that's what it was at first. Near the back, I find a huge list of female names with phone numbers next to them, along with pages of dates and meetup times. There were things like Motel 8, Amanda, 4:30, Saturday, May 30th, Lamont McD, Susan, 5, Friday, April 26th, all through the back pages. When I started thinking back, I realized that a lot of the times and dates were days he told me he was going to the place down the road from our house to get a haircut. It didn't take me long to realize that the bastard had most likely been around me for years and lied about it, then turned around and tried to make me feel like the worst person on the planet by saying I'd cheated on him. I'd never felt so angry and sad before. I'm getting mad all over again, just thinking about it. I never told him I found that book, though, seeing as I don't talk to him anymore. I take solace in the fact knowing that he stooped low and cheated on me, but I never did to him, and I'm the better person for it. Story 13. So I have some recent experience in this department. The marriage has been going downhill for a while now, and I travel a lot for work. My wife does a lot of volunteer work and became very close with a male volunteer who was going through a divorce. Around Christmas time, I saw a text between the two of them about secret plans to meet up. I confronted her on it, and we separated in January. In early May, I somehow got copied into a text conversation between the two of them about enjoying doing each other that morning. That's about when I figured out it was really over. We have one amazing daughter together, and telling her is the last step that we're both dreading and avoiding. Rather than be indignant and self-righteous about her actions, I'm seeing a therapist and owning my part in why the relationship had deteriorated. Facing those truths and what was lacking in that relationship is much harder than simply blaming her and moving on. But it's the right thing to do. I do not want the same thing to happen again if I do end up in another relationship. All of that said, it hurts like hell. But the personal growth side of it will pay off huge in the future. Hell, it already has in many ways. Keep your head up, own your part, and move forward. Story 14. I remember an old girlfriend of mine had become friends with a guy I went to high school with. They started getting really close, and I mentioned that it made me uncomfortable because the guy obviously didn't like me. I worked a desk job from 3 midnight, 5 days a week, so it became a bit hard to have a normal schedule. We would meet for dinner a few nights a week in my lunch break and spend the mornings and early afternoons together. One night we got into an argument because I didn't get the promotion that would have changed my hours from 8 to 5. A couple nights later, as I'm driving home, I see the guy's truck parked down the street from my house. I called her. Big mistake. The guy picked up her phone and said hello to me as they were intimate in his truck. I could hear her loudly in the background. I hung up immediately and sat frozen in my driveway. About 20 minutes later, she called me back saying they were just watching videos on his new LCD head unit in his truck. Needless to say, the relationship was over. She ended up pregnant with a dude's kid. He bailed on her, and she's been a single mom living at home with no job ever since. Now when I see the guy from time to time, I always thank him for doing that and tell him to enjoy the child support payments. Watching videos in a new LCD head unit? Yeah, sure. That's what they were doing. Story 15. One Saturday, my hubby's phone alarm goes off. He's asleep upstairs, and I'm downstairs with our 3-month-old. Since I don't want to wake her, I go to turn it off. Something tells me to check his texts. That's when I found out he's seeing a coworker half his age. She was 20. He was 40. I immediately confront him and find out that he has been seeing her since I was 7 months pregnant. I threw him out then and there. I went to his work that night and confronted his girlfriend, introduced myself as his wife, and when I said her name, I said, "Oh, you're the one who's been intimate with my husband." We had other problems, and there was no way I was going to forgive him. I will admit that we should have never gotten married and that I also was guilty of being a witch from time to time. For us, divorce was the best thing that we could have done. Sorry you have to go through this. Don't fight in front of your kids. Get a lawyer. Talk to a few before you pick one. Document everything. Good luck. Story 16. Years ago, my former boss, a successful local business owner, lost big in a divorce from his first wife. He kept his home and his business, but he lost half or more of his net worth in the fight. After the split, his girlfriend moved in with him. He vowed to never marry her and set about rebuilding his business and his fortunes. 3 days shy of 7 years after the day she moved in, his attorney reminded him that in less than 72 hours, he would, by default, remarry under common law. He apparently did not have to explain the implications of this to my former boss. The next day after his girlfriend left for work, he backed up a truck to the house he'd owned for 30-plus years and instructed his employees to load everything he owned into it as fast as they could. He rented an apartment, submitted a change of address to the USPS, waited for his crew to unload his possessions, and then, in my imagination, bought a six-pack at the closest store and had a couple of cold drinks in between huge sighs of relief. Story 17. Happened to me once, bro. Not quite the same way, but found out about it when I trusted my gut and looked at her computer. Moved out that day. I did the whole, just stop talking to him and we can work it out thing for about a month and a half. Good friends helped me realize she was just a no-good hoe. When I look back, I just realized I had to go through this to understand it. My point is that it leads me to two things. One, I finally got the confidence to talk to a girl I had a crush on for 3 years. Obviously, because my relationship was flawed from the beginning, but I was the only one who didn't see it. And two, I, just this year, married that same girl. I now call her my wife and the mother of my 5-week-old son. I love her and her son so much, and it literally went from 6 feet under to on top of the world. This is my first response to this type of thread on Reddit, but I felt compelled to let you know. I've been there and things will work out, bro. I will. I couldn't even fathom this to be true, but it is. Do what you have to do for the time being. I was so depressed, but, it's true. Only the awful people could do that, especially if you have children. Now I feel terrible that you have children and she's a total B for involving them or for even doing this with them home. But I'd say take the kids and make her start over. She's clearly a terrible mom and wife. Good luck with everything. And don't work it out, because it will happen again. I wish I knew about Reddit when I went through it. You'll find a lot of help here. Here's to moving on, eventually, and being happy once more. Story 18. As someone who found his ex-wife had cheated on him, I can tell you that it is sometimes something really small that no one else would pick up on that is the tip-off. Not that the OP's text is that small of a detail, but it sometimes makes the other details click. In my case, it was my ex coming back early from a trip to visit a friend that rang a bell. She worked for an airline and took off on weekends every month or so to visit family and friends. She always took the last flight possible to make the trip count. But this one time, when I knew there were over flights from where she was visiting, she came back too early. When her answer to why she was back early didn't sound right, my BS meter went off, and I knew she had cheated. To this day, I cannot tell you what it was, but I was never sure of anything. I then began to hound her, because sure as hell she wasn't going to play the it's all in your head game with me, which she tried for a while, until I told her, okay, fine, swear to me and your mother's health that this is all just in my head. She gave up and glared back at me. Happy? I would later learn that she had come early because the affair had made her realize she wanted to save our relationship. We had been drifting apart for months at that point. I took it as a way to end things. Luckily, we had no kids, or it would have gone differently, I think. But apparently, she spent a fair amount of time talking about me to her next SO. Story 19. Similar story to many on here, and because of that sick feeling that many of us share, I'm also compelled to share. So I had what I like to call first girlfriend syndrome. Some people call it their first love, but I've seen it go wrong more than right, so it's a syndrome. That's when you hold on to a relationship way too long, just because it's the first one that matters to you. Luckily, I was young and not married. She was a special kind of manipulator, to say the least. At some point after our first year together, she figured out she could work me over and get away with a lot of stuff. Now, it did some things that I'm not proud of, especially looking away from things that should have ended earlier than it did. Some of the things included multiple reports of her doing something with another guy at a party, but none of it was actually seen, obviously leaving me out of social events so that she could do what she wants multiple times, and putting herself in situations where I had to rely on her word and her word alone. One thing in particular that was bad when I got an errant text like the OP that stated that she had the best intimacy with Bill last night. I'm not Bill. She claimed she'd given her a toy name. Eventually, she started almost daring me to catch her, like when a picture surfaced of her kissing another guy. That was almost the last straw. After that, I did the most regrettable thing I'd ever done and blatantly looked the other way and told myself that in the next situation where I had to trust her, I'd end it. It didn't take too long before she went to a movie with a coworker, which is not a big deal to me, but then she stayed the night and I asked her about that. She told me that they went to a late show and it got out late. That's not a good enough excuse. Then she said that they had a few drinks and she couldn't drive, so she stayed in the couch. That's when I told her that it was over. Even if that was the truth, one of the many that got us there was not, and we won't be speaking again. I guess when I saw the picture, I knew, but didn't want to admit it yet. Story 20. I had a live-in boyfriend for a while. There was a girl who was all over him on his Facebook page, and even though I didn't personally know this girl, I knew this girl. The kind who convinces herself she's in a relationship when she's not, is interested in the things the guy is interested in just to keep his attention, etc. In other words, very insecure and immature. Boyfriend told her to back off and everything was fine for a while. I started noticing that he was attached to his phone. I got up one night to take some medication that I'd left in the kitchen and found his phone lit up with a text from her. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. Needless to say, he was sending inappropriate texts. Initiated by her, mostly, but he always reciprocated. I marched straight into the bedroom, hit him with a pillow, and told him to get the hell out of my house. I was throwing things out after him, Jerry Springer style, at 2 a.m. Being cheated on is the most sick I've felt in my life. There's not a lot that compares to it. To top it off, the other chick was ugly. And I mean really ugly.
What are the telltale signs they are heading for a breakup? Okay, I'm late to the party, but my ex-wife put me through emotional hell. After about 3 years of a really painful separation or divorce, I'm finally becoming myself again. Cruelty in relationships is very sneaky. The strongest person can fall victim to it, usually because it comes very slowly, but eventually you feel like a prisoner, trapped in a cell. We had a couple of bad fights before we got married. We probably shouldn't have gotten married, but I loved her and went through with it anyway. Not a good idea. She never discussed serious life decisions with me, mostly money or job-related stuff. She only spoke to her father, who eventually stepped in and put a huge wedge between us. I was always under pressure to make more money. She was obsessed with money. Not to save it, but to buy clothes, handbags, and other stuff that no human needs. Her father was rich for a time and spent a lot of money on her to show her he loved her, even though he wasn't that great of a dad. So she and I ate lunch out every single day. I was throwing money out of the window so she could feel like she was a princess. After her son was born, she became a full monster, turned into a complete psycho. Everything was my fault, and I was always in trouble. She decided that she hated my family. They did nothing to her except be nice to her. We moved across the country, and when my parents would visit, my ex would make everything really difficult so we couldn't relax or have fun. It became a huge problem. When she would yell at me, I would stay calm. I'm a thinker, not a screamer, so I take moments to collect my thoughts. She was a screamer. She would just spew madness at me, all these things that I did wrong. And finally, when I got mad and said something hurtful, she'd just keep repeating the one mean thing I said to her. I think she may have cheated on me. Not sure, but it may have happened. I was extremely faithful, to the point where I couldn't really have friends, and she would always accuse me of cheating with girls I worked with. I'd be shocked by where she came up with these ideas. When we argued, I could always tell when it was her father's words coming at me, because it would be something they talked about either in front of me or when she relayed a conversation she had. She would blow up on me in front of her toddler son. One time she called the cops to threaten me to get out. They actually showed up because the dispatcher answered and my ex hung up. The cops were nice, but they asked me to leave for a little while. I was so stressed when we were driving. While we were sitting in traffic, I would feel so helpless. I'd count how many spokes car hubcaps had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one is 5. 1, 2, 3. Silent treatment. No intimacy, no hugs, no cuddling, no I love yous. When I went in for a kiss, I got the top or side of her head. She only said I love you if I said it. I started reading and reading on a Nook. That way she couldn't figure out how many books I was going through. I got in trouble for bringing home too many books. I didn't have enough room for them. I was trying to escape so much. I read the first 3 Game of Thrones books in about a month. Eventually, she yelled at me that I was always in my book. I would hide in the bathroom. I would pretend I didn't feel good. Actually didn't. I would go and lock myself in the bathroom forever. My only joy was my son. Absolute light from heaven. When my ex was gone working for the day, I worked the night. He and I would build forts, dance to music. I held him and danced, and watched the kids' shows and Pixar movies together. When he would nap, that's when I would get a little time for myself. But then she would come home and I would go to work. I worked late and she went to bed early, so sometimes for about 20 minutes or so, I would drive around town just so I didn't have to go home. As much as I dearly love my son, I didn't want to be in the same building as her. I knew she was erasing me from this world. She kept me on a deadline. Something has to happen or I have to make a decision. She always said our incomes combined put us in the middle class. Middle class income. But that wasn't good enough for her and her father. I was always on the deadline. When I finally suggested that we stop eating out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, when I had off, it was all 3. She lost her mind and screamed at me. I was holding my son and she was screaming at me, telling me how awful I was. She stormed over and smacked me across the face while I was holding her son. I was defenseless. To keep her away, I kicked her in the leg. She screamed at me. "How dare you hit me?" She finally told me I had to move out. I was a shell of a man. I didn't love her anymore. But I was terribly upset because of my son. I also felt terrible because I never wanted to be a divorce statistic. I love the idea of being married with a family, but this woman made me want to be gone. I found a place nearby, and my incredible son adjusted really well. Then my ex got into a relationship with a schmuck and she wanted to move further away to be near him. I found out he was staying with her, and I had to take her to court asking the judge that my son not be taken out of his school. He had dozens of friends and was extremely smart. The judge let her move, and now my son sits in hours of traffic going back and forth. He's still incredibly bright and happy. When my son was little and his mom would come to pick him up, he didn't want to leave. He and I have a really good relationship. He'd get upset and then not want to go. I would have to pick him up and carry him out to his mom's car while he was crying. I told him how much I loved him, but he'd be crying too loud to hear me. I would close the door and watch the car pull away, seeing him wailing in the back seat. Those walks back to my crappy apartment were the longest walks of my life. Her boyfriend cheated on her, and now who knows if she's single, but now she's stuck in this area and I'm too far away for emergencies regarding anything with my son. Through all of this, all the depression and drinking and loneliness, I still wake up and put a smile on my face. I look for a reason. I lost a baseball cap that my brothers had bought me. I found it yesterday. That made me laugh. Reddit helped me. Talking with strangers is great. I love it when I find out I'm talking with someone from across the world. My family helped me. If you have a loving family, don't ever take that for granted and don't push them away. They should and will always be there for you. Sorry for the rant, but if you've experienced anything like what I wrote, think about it deeply. Is it worth it? Because marriage should be for forever, but it doesn't have to be, especially if you're in danger. His ex-wife sounds like a nightmare. It's incredible how someone can be so cruel and manipulative. He deserves so much better. Story 2. Lol, I can relate to this so much. Disclaimer, not blaming the person in the story for a relationship failing. It was probably more my fault than hers in the end. I was driving with my girlfriend at the time. She's driving my car with the dog and myself. She's going to drop me off at a friend's place and take my car and go to another part of town to hang out with family. I'm going to have a few drinks. She's going to pick me up after. All good. Pretty casual day. Normally we hung out together, but this time it just worked out that we'd do our own thing. Flag itself? I don't know. So we're driving. I weren't far from my house when I started feeling a bizarre sensation in the car. It had already been having issues, but this was different and worse. Tell her to pull over real quick. Argues with me and tells me I'm overreacting. After a very small bit of convincing, she pulls over. I do a 360 check on the car and don't see anything normal, so we keep going. After another kilometer or two, and it's clear there's a problem, the panic and anger sets in for her as I look up at the nearest gauge. She really doesn't want to stop, thinks I'm overreacting, blah blah, making things very difficult. Eventually, I'm basically like, listen, we're stopping, okay? Jesus Christ. Or whatever, because I'm sick of trying to explain and being told that I'm an idiot. So we drive another 4 to 5 kilometers and roll into the shop. I go in and tell her to park the car. Some dude comes bolting into the shop and goes, "Does anyone know the girl in that silver car? Her freaking wheel is about to fall off." Ultimately, the problem was my mechanic didn't tighten the bolts in the wheel enough and one started to fall off. So she could have been gone or in an accident and didn't want to stop out of stubbornness or personal beef with me. For what it's worth, it's not like either of us were going to some special event that we were late for. That was definitely one of several flags that things were coming to a permanent end. No trust, no partnership, etc. Background, this is towards the end of the relationship. We'd already split up, got back together. No works. We split up for good within a few months of this. Can't remember exactly as it was about 4 years ago now. Story 3. It usually starts around 6 months before the actual breakup. First, she'll raise the topic of open relationships with you, just to see how you react. And when you ask if she's already interested in someone else, she'll admit that she's been speaking to the other guy for months before bringing it up with you, then admitting that they kissed. After getting understandably upset about this, she'll try to make you feel like you're the bad guy, that you're trying to control her and that she feels trapped because you don't want her to sleep with other people. This will lead to a month of tension and arguments, culminating in her destroying your self-confidence by saying that being intimate with you makes her feel awful, and that you're basically worthless as a partner. Because you're a witch and you'll put up with continued mental cruelty for months while you try to work things out by suggesting stuff like couples therapy and trying to change your mind about polyamory, while she refuses to try therapy and continues to talk constantly about open relationships. After 5 months, you'll go abroad for 2 weeks alone and realize you're happier than you've been in years because you're away from her. Then you'll come back home and end the relationship. This will lead to her pleading with you not to leave and promising she'll change. totally contradicting everything she said previously. You'll stand firm and say no, despite the expense of leaving your shared home nearly bankrupting you. Then she'll realize you're not coming back and hurl more cruelty your way, blaming you for all the problems in the relationship and denying that she did anything wrong. After that, you'll get a nice flat with someone who isn't awful and live happily ever after. Hopefully. 2 months have passed and it's still affecting me, but I'm getting better at least. Story 4. When your significant other goes out of their way to find differences between the two of you. This can be a subtle one, but I've noticed it in almost every breakup I've had. For example, you watch a movie and you think your significant other might like it, so you say, "Hey, check out X. It's your sort of movie." When things are going well, they might say, "Oh, okay." But just before the breakup, they're looking to put psychological distance between you, so it ends up turning into, "Oh, that's really not the kind of movie I like." It's subtle, but I think it happens when people are trying to justify going out with someone else. They try to find as many differences between themselves and their current partner to make it seem like it's not a good fit, and they find more and more similarities with a new partner. Of course, this is just a general pattern. If it happens one time, don't think your significant other is going to break up with you tomorrow. Story 5. First, you'll go do some activity that you do only a few times a year together that you usually enjoy. But this time, neither of you will really be feeling it. For us, it was backpacking. You'll mope around together for a few days thinking the same thoughts. Are we less happy than we used to be? Do we still love each other? Neither of you wants to bring it up because that feels like that discussion could start ending the relationship right there. You'll bring up the idea of an open relationship, but only after much trepidation. You'll admit that it's been something that interested you too, but you didn't think she'd like the idea and didn't want to risk losing her just by bringing it up. You wonder why she ended up mentioning it first. Eventually, she admits that she's got someone in mind. She feels bad about it, but nothing's actually happened with this other guy. They're barely friends. You both agree to go for it. You both genuinely believe that everyone wins. Both of you will get that fresh new love excitement, but also get to keep the stable partner you love and trust. It's kind of exciting. She's a pretty girl and she's already got a guy in mind, so very shortly she's got the other guy. It's kind of refreshing to spend more time alone and then have something to talk about when you're together. Unfortunately, you're not a pretty girl. You didn't already have someone in mind, so you're stuck with only one partner. So now she's really half a partner. You don't entirely hate this because you don't really need to see her as often as you'd been. It's kind of nice. Though it does feel awful that you can't find anyone for you. She begins to love the new guy. You still aren't jealous as much as you're envious. When will you get a chance to enjoy this interesting arrangement? Now that she has strong feelings for two men at once, she begins to feel more like she's hurting two people she cares about than loving them. Between work, school, and two partners, she can't give either partner enough time anymore. You'll go abroad for a week and realize that you don't miss her as much as you thought you would, more that you miss the idea of a companion who has time for you. You talk about this with her and you start to realize having an open relationship is just making you both feel kind of bad. Mutually, you decide to end it, and you never even go to sleep with two girls in the same day. You'll pick up the new guy whose love hasn't gone stale yet. You understood this could happen and you accept it. And it feels crappy that you don't get a new partner out of the deal. Both of you want to go on being friends, but you can't actually hang out very much since you don't want to make her new guy uncomfortable. She'll leave a lot of stuff at your apartment and move out by herself. You'll feel bad every time you accidentally break one of her glasses, and you'll wonder when you'll have to buy a new microwave stand because she'll eventually want this one back. In a couple months, you'll be over her enough to actually be friends. Sometimes you'll talk on the phone and really enjoy it. You'll realize that you want someone really quite similar to her, but unfortunately not her. Not her because of the unfortunate biochemical facts of love. You'll wonder if any relationship can be fulfilling after 4 years. Screw it, you think. Let's find out. Then you proceed to be single for the foreseeable future, but it's not terrible. The end. Story 6. I might be late, but I think the worst sign is overdependence. Depending too much on a partner or on each other will most likely guarantee that it will not last. My ex was a beautiful, funny, and cool girl who I thought had it all. I depended on her so much that she didn't have enough space. I always wanted to hang out with her and kiss her and always be with her until I realized what I was doing. We talked and made space, but after I stopped being so dependent and clingy, she started to be just the same. She would constantly check my phone and find something she didn't like that was pretty normal. She went from wanting space to not letting me talk to my friends who were girls. I remember at one point she made me tell another girl I wouldn't be talking to her because I used to think she was cute a couple of years before. It ended because we both realized we depended on each other way too much. That crap left me sour. It's been over a month, but I'd still take you back any day and work it out. It's understandable to miss someone, but It's important to learn from past mistakes. Remember, healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and trust. Story 7. When you have the same arguments over and over and over again, each time reaching a compromise that one of you don't adhere to, it puts more restrictions on the other one. My ex and I constantly argued about the amount of time that I spent with my friends. She was always invited. She never wanted to go, so we compromised. And I limited it to one night a week with one night of us time guaranteed, and she would try to be less jealous. Then we compromised to one night every 2 weeks with a date night every week. She would try to be less jealous. Then we compromised to one night a month. Same terms on her end. Then when it came around again, I was the schmuck for not wanting to compromise. She ended up leaving me on my birthday while I was out with friends. She came along this time, saw me with him, couldn't take it, and left me, expecting me to forgive and forget the next day. I forgave and moved out. There are a whole bunch of other things that happened too, and this is just my side, but I'm glad we broke up. I found a new girl and we're getting married in September. The almost right ones are needed so you can recognize the real right one when they come along. Story 8. In my experience, the biggest telltale comes in bed. I see a well-defined line between intimacy and making love, as cheesy as it may sound. Intimacy is easy. It's fun and it's rather unfulfilling. Yes, it feels good, but there's always something missing. Some part of me that is left unsatisfied. Making love is freaking awesome. It makes you feel connected, cared for, and loved. It makes you want to hold on to that moment, to that girl forever. I don't have intimacy with my girlfriend. I make love. So the little problems in bed have always been the first signs of something being amiss. Maybe we don't feel like going at it. Maybe we do, but one just can't get in the mood and just offers to help the other finish. Maybe that position we loved or that thing we liked suddenly feels meh, etc. All of these could be for a plethora of reasons by themselves, but when they come together, or more often than they should, it's always been a red flag to me. Sometimes it's something that made one of us mad. Sometimes it's jealousy. Sometimes it's deeper than that. But every time that things turned out not so great and bad, there was an underlying issue that needed to be addressed. And not always we were aware of it until it was too late. Story 9. Intimacy becomes only about his pleasure. There's no more moment leading up to it. The emptiness and resentment builds until you look yourself in the mirror on your birthday, not looking forward to the day because you know he doesn't have anything planned. The intimacy won't be any different. You're finally sick and tired of feeling used. You go see him, because this was before cheap texting plans and you'll feel better doing it in person. You walk in. He's already in the bedroom. You toss his house key at him and the promise ring he gave you back when you were happy being with him, and tell him you're done, that you're tired of being treated like you're just a bucket and auto parts runner for him. You see the beginnings of his reality shattering. But turn around and leave while he's still stunned. Take a long roundabout way home because you feel like a donkey for some reason. You ignore his phone calls for the next 2 weeks, not even listening to the voicemails. Try talking to him the next time he calls, explain how he made you feel used, and listen to him explain how he didn't think he was that bad. You move and don't ask him for help, much less tell him about it. He calls when he finds out you don't live there anymore to find out where you're at. You don't tell him, so he goes back to, "Why did you leave me?" You give him the Cliff's Notes of your previous conversations. Eventually, you just hang up. You go to the AT&T store one night after work to inquire about that new fangled iPhone thing. It sounds good, so you retire your 10-year-old Nokia and get a 3GS with phone number change, finally disappearing from his radar. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 10. She is suddenly too busy for you, but very bored when anyone else asks. She starts acting like a complete witch out of nothing, even when you're very nice towards her. She starts saying some really messed up lies. That you caused her a panic attack by simply sending her a short text message asking if she's okay. She just disappeared from the face of Earth for no apparent reason. Tell you that she's actually in love with some soldier living across the world and she'll move in with him. Or that she sold her body for cash and you're the only one to blame because you didn't reply to a text message after she ignored you for weeks while talking even to strangers, etc. Or tell her that you love her despite her flaws and all she has to say is, "You don't even know me. I'm not what you think I am." Which can only mean she has a lot of nasty secrets. Which only means it's her fault for not giving you the entire information. But she just dumps it on you. She obsessively claims you don't care for her, although everybody else says the contrary and you have treated her far better than anyone else in your entire life. No matter what you do or say, that's not caring. She doesn't feel it. It's all your fault. You're the bad guy. Although she's never shown even half of the caring you showed her. Just a pretext to force a breakup without her feeling guilty and dumping it all on you. You're the problem, not her. She keeps on projecting all her anger, frustration, etc. onto you, although you had nothing to do with the source of her issues. Losing your job, failing her college year, having an argument with her parents, etc. She portrays you as evil and the cause of everything bad in her life and the world. There are no arguments, just obsessive repetition of the same empty accusations. She never apologizes. She claims you're the most important person to her ever, but she never shows it. More than that, she often applies the silent treatment without any explanation. Treats you like complete crap. Puts you the last in her priority list, while she's very chatty and charming when it comes to complete strangers. She even claims you do not understand her after years of being there for her. But some people she just met online, far less intelligent than you, somehow do. Story 11. I think I'm awful at this because, to me, time alone sometimes is refreshing. I may love you with all of my being, but sometimes I want a week or two to go to Starbucks and the gym by myself, hang with friends, etc. I want to miss you. When you spend all your time together, you feel trapped and you don't get that feeling that you're a team. You're like a two-headed blob. So when my last boyfriend wanted the same, I didn't question it. I knew my marriage was over when I was tired of fighting with him every day. I was tired of being the only one making an effort. I was even making his doctor's appointments and sending out resumes for him. My last boyfriend, he just stopped talking to me one day. Said he was mad. He touched base in a few days when he had a chance to calm down and never talked to me again. He was mad that I told a story at work about him being really nice to me while I was going through a rough time and was homesick. He said his boss heard it and people know about his personal life at work may damage his career. But grabbing my back at work and telling everyone we were dating before it started was totally cool. Apparently, he may have been cheating on me with a different coworker. Well, at least he was honest about his priorities. Career over love, I guess. Story 12. When you're in a relationship and you're reading these comments to check if any apply to your current situation, knowing that they do and then brushing over it, telling yourself it will work its way out, and then you don't discuss any issues and then they boil over and explode. Seriously, I did this for years and we broke up over a year ago now. She was poison. Other things like lack of intimacy, not really being a guy stereotype. We didn't have intimacy for about 6 months prior to ending it. Having the place you live appears more like housemates and not a couple. Arguments over the slightest thing, as in asking to borrow 50p and being labeled a scrounger and screamed at to pull myself together, actually happened. Putting off coming home from work, working overtime, going for drinks with his workmates just so you don't have to face walking into that tense atmosphere and being anxious waiting for a fight to break out. When they constantly put you down in public and compare how much better their job is than yours and remind you all the time. So many warning signs. But my advice is to just never sweep things under the carpet. Get out if you feel there's more negative than positive. 4.5-year relationship and I feel like it was over and dead for the last 1.5 years. Story 13. So I'm reaching my 4-year anniversary pretty soon. I absolutely love my wife. We get along really well. I miss her when she's gone. We have a decent physical relationship, and we enjoy going out to dinners or movies and road trips. So on that end, it's a great relationship. But there are times when I just get exhausted. What do you want to do for dinner? Her? I don't know. How about blank? Okay. Afterwards, I didn't really want this. Almost the exact same conversations when it comes to watching TV. I'm also a huge gamer and she has no interest in gaming. And no hobbies. None. Besides going out shopping, which we can't afford all the time, or going on trips, which I can't do either since I don't get vacation time at work. So there are days when I just have to get away and just game out. But I leave her isolated in another room with nothing to do and she gets miserably bored. And then when I try to interject time with her for TV or movies or dinner, we get into the above discussion. This really is the bane of our relationship. Everything else is solid, except for this aspect. My hobby is video games. Her hobby is non-existent. There are times where I think to myself I want someone more assertive, someone with more of an opinion, but I don't want someone else. I just want her to step up. Story 14. When one person is investing time and energy into the relationship and the other isn't, it's a two-way street. We were really flirty and friendly before we decided to start dating. After a few dates, we text and Snapchat a lot, etc. And after about a week, we decided to get more serious. I got a bad feeling in the back of my mind that things weren't going to go well. I was putting a lot of effort into the relationship. She was putting little to none. Maybe I was trying too hard at first, but I didn't want to mess anything up, and it was my first, only relationship. She was always too busy for me, for anything from having a conversation at school or texting to finding time for dates. I held on for 3 months because I was too scared to be alone, because I felt like nobody else would say yes to a date with me. I got really lucky with her, so I wanted to make it last. When I tried to talk about it with her, she said she'd prefer to text. We had a conversation, the longest one we had in a while. And I thought things were looking up, and then she broke up with me because she couldn't handle it. Over a year and a half later, I still haven't gotten another yes. Story 15. My experience is limited, but when I look back on my first serious relationship, all the warning signs were there. I started to get suspicious when instead of saying hello when answering the phone, she instead answered with, look, 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 usually followed by odd sounds. I just assumed it was an inside joke between her and my roommate that she was spending so much time with. They were both artsy types, so I wasn't concerned when I found an archive of modeling they did together. I've never really understood modern art, so I didn't criticize it. What disturbed me was the fact that they took these images with cell phones rather than a real camera. She knew how much I despise inferior mediums, but she did it anyway. No respect for my needs. I finally knew it was over, though, when she didn't show up for an ICC 25 raid one night. It was her first attempt at heroics in Ragosa, and she didn't even bother to tell anyone she wouldn't be there. Warlock DPS was impressive at the time, and she insisted on speccing demonology because it's fun. Like that's relevant or anything. Needless to say, that night we had no one to summon the slackers, so I had to wait at least 15 minutes after the scheduled raid time to play whack-a-mole with health bars. Showing such a lack of interest in the things most important to me was an obvious warning sign that our relationship was coming to an end. If only I could have been more aware of what was going on. After posting this, I decided to look up this ex of mine, just to see how miserable she is without me. Facebook must have some kind of bug, though. Her last name is the same as my old roommate's now. Story 16. This will definitely get buried, but one of the biggest things I noticed as a red flag within my last relationship was that I was constantly the one under fire. As in, no matter what changes I made, no matter what improvements I implemented, and no matter how much I tried to be the best girlfriend ever, I was still getting critiqued by my boyfriend at the time. And to build off of that, my ex would refuse to fix anything in his end and refuse to admit when he was having a crap attitude. No one is perfect. I get that. And you can never expect someone to completely remodel themselves so that they fit you better, but when it is constantly somehow always your problem or your mistake, then there's a chance that is a warning sign your partner is unhappy and probably just doesn't have the courage to end it. Sometimes that unhappiness goes deep, or maybe your partner is just unhappy with who they are, or it is something much more on the surface. They simply are no longer happy with the relationship. That is normal, and it happens. Don't try to force something that isn't meant to be. Just learn what you can from the relationship and end it on a good note as best as possible. And at least be happy knowing you understand more about what you want from a future relationship. Story 17. As a guy, I can say 100% that it's all about the respect dynamic. Not sure what the signs are for a guy breaking up with a girl. I think I tend to get a bit distant. But I can absolutely say that you'll notice a loss of respect before a girl breaks up with you or cheats on you. Really, it's a change in the level of respect. Some people have very little respect for their partners to start with, and I guess that's just unhealthy. But when I first get into a relationship, it starts out with her thinking I'm a pretty cool guy. She's appealing to my friends, and if I say I don't want to do X, then we find something else to do. If I say X is cool, she agrees, or at least respectfully disagrees. She admires things about me and is at least somewhat in awe of some of my traits. Keep in mind this is mutual. I'd be in awe of some things she can do as well. When we're about to break up, all that changes. She becomes less willing to go along with things I want to do. She finds faults in my friends and starts disrespecting my hobbies and interests. I've also found that nice gestures are met with hesitation. If you just went out and bought her flowers or did some other thing she found romantic, and her response is lukewarm, you're on the chopping block for sure. Story 18. When you're disgusted by kissing him. When he's more than 18 months without a job and instead of getting you the $20 silver necklace you've been asking for since the previous birthday and Christmas, he spends around $1,000 on a different Valentine's Day gift that you barely even look at anymore because all he did was hold the monetary value over your head if you went over somewhere without it, regardless of the fact that it wasn't something you'd ever asked for. And it takes effort to use properly, and you might want to go to an event to have fun without having to worry about the gear you're carrying or feeling like you're working. And he's excited about getting more tattoos, and you're taking him to a tattoo expo and helping him choose artists. But he won't let you get more tattoos or piercings yourself. Since splitting a few months ago, I'm building on my own collection. And the guy I'm seeing now doesn't care what tattoos or piercings I get because he's attracted to me, not just my skin. No matter how many times you try, you just can't get him to stop interrupting you, whether you're talking about your day or something funny you saw or trying to solve a relationship problem, which is totally your fault because you should have tried harder or slapped him to shut him up. No, that's just a simple lack of respect and something nobody should ever have to do. If you love them,
You listen to them. And you notice that all he does is complain and make up excuses to complain, and complain if you wanted to do things without him, but if you drag him to something so he wouldn't complain, he'd still complain, of course, and rudely ignore when you introduce him to a male friend and later accuse you of flirting with said friend even though you weren't, and blame you for his depression and weight even though you tried to help him and he made excuses. He didn't want to help himself, but it was all still your fault. And even after you split, he finds more excuses to contact you, including trying to tell you what you can and can't post in your own social media accounts because, God help if you lose weight and you show off as a rare positive after almost 2 years of constant negatives. The list goes on. I hated myself more with every day. It made me feel like I was a worthless pile of crap. I was gaining weight despite dieting and exercising. I was constantly stressed out or angry or crying. I hated life. 9 days of freedom, I'm still developing myself again, but I am so much happier. Get to spend time with my friends of both genders without consequence. Do things I enjoy whenever. Oh, and I've lost 7 kilograms, 15.5 pounds. Story 19. Projecting. My most recent ex would do this all the time, and with previous exes, I'd been far too neurotic and paranoid. So I did my best to not entertain them when he'd start. You don't want to come over this weekend? You must want to break up with me, but you don't know how to say it, so you're making this up to avoid me. You never want to cuddle anymore. You must be sleeping with someone else. Side note, I explained to him several times, I don't want to cuddle because you explicitly told me on multiple occasions that you don't like to be cuddled and you find it childish. You never text me anymore. You must be over me. I don't text you anymore because you always shut conversations down after around 3 messages. I compromised everything. I didn't want to go to any of my social events. I'd go alone. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to pressure him. I didn't like physical contact. I would respect it. He clearly wasn't into texting regularly. I wouldn't bother him. Even though this is basically a deal breaker, I'd give it a chance. I wanted out the whole time. We dated for less than a year, but didn't want to be the one to initiate the breakup. He was constantly trying to have me ended. Story 20. Me and my ex always knew he had an expiration date, but we were too stubborn to end it. What sealed the deal for me was, we were watching some Maury, I think, and some chick was pregnant on TV. He laughed and said, that witch is stuck with that dude forever now because they have a kid. Serves the witch right. Yeah, very eye-opening. I just didn't want to do those little details you do for someone in a relationship anymore. I made a jar with love notes years before, and I noticed it was becoming empty. A good girlfriend would just make more little notes and put them in the jar. I just didn't want to write him anything nice or sweet anymore. I knew my breaking point was coming soon. We were going to fight about something stupid, and I knew I would snap. Once I break up with someone, my mind and heart just won't let me get back with him. I knew there would be no turning back. Maybe that's why I tolerated him for longer than I should have. Surely enough, it happened like I predicted. Story 21. For me, it was when she kept saying that she wasn't good enough for me 6 months prior to breaking up. Thought I had understood what she meant, due to personal details I won't elaborate on, and I always told her that it was nonsense and I loved her, flaws and all. Then she confessed to getting physical with a friend that she had more in common with than me. I understood then what she meant. We agreed to break up because I was in that relationship 100%. But her heart was now playing tug of war between me and her friend. I felt that if both people aren't in it 100%, then they can't work out. I wanted to forgive and work through it, but she started seeing herself in his arms rather than mine. I just tell myself that she cheated out of weakness, confusion, rather than malice. Story 22. One-sided reliance. You see this a lot in relationships where one person suffers from depression or anxiety but hasn't, or refuses to, develop their own coping techniques and strategies. Situations like these put immense strain on one person in the relationship and develop a reliance on that person to solve the problems of the other. It's not healthy. It creates a severe and quick burnout and frustration with their partner. I know this because it caused the ending of my last relationship with a woman who suffered from anxiety and depression but refused to attempt to work on it. For me, it was knowing that when a problem arose, I would be the one to deal with it. Chores, even though we agreed on a split that was more work for her than me, I do hers. I had a tough day. Well, I guess I'm not going to the gym so I can cuddle her and tell her it's going to be okay for the 3rd day in a row. Money troubles? Well, now I've got to practically force her to sit down and do a budget so she can stop being a ball of anxiety about said money. After almost 2 years of being the only support system, she refused to talk to her friends about it because she thought they would judge her. I became very burnt out. I may get burned for this, but I believe it's solid advice. If you have anxiety or depression and you're in a relationship, please go see a professional therapist or counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist if you need meds. They have the training and appropriate professional distance to help you make improvements in your mental state.
Making a partner or loved one your main support system is incredibly straining. It can really damage your relationship, especially in that person's perception of you. When my relationship started, I thought of her as an intelligent and driven woman who could tackle challenges. I did not hold the same opinion when we finally broke up.
What screams, "We're not going to last long," for couples? When the dynamic is super obvious to outsiders early on, that's a bad sign. Whatever is happening on the outside is always worse on the inside. I know a couple where the woman will just berate her man publicly. She'll talk to him like he's an actual child. She tells him how much he's allowed to do certain things, but twists it so it doesn't look as bad. It's as if she genuinely thinks he's mentally disabled or something. Except she only does it when she's being controlling. For example, she hates when he plays video games. She thinks it's immature and a waste of time that could be spent hanging out with her or being productive. She thinks it's embarrassing that he plays video games. So he has to sneak around to play video games at other people's houses so that he can play it off as if it's the other person's fault that he was playing. Like, oh, Mike wanted to play and I just couldn't say no at his house. Now I have seen this couple having a semi-private argument. They're very loud and literally go one room away from their guests to have arguments. This woman will berate the way he talks during fights and literally mock him to his face in a baby voice like, "Nah, nah, nah, I'm a grown man and I still play video games." Instead of actually making real commentary on the argument, this breaks his spirit, and he ends up just exhausting during the fight and succumbing to whatever she wants. The things she wants are super inconsistent, so he can't win there either. The public thinks she doesn't like video games and looks down on him for it, but privately, she's completely broken this guy's spirit and he can't escape the cycle due to constant emotional exhaustion. And that's not even true privacy. That's when I'm in another room. God only knows how bad it is when they're completely alone together. I hear some of it because this guy has come to my house and she kicks him out for the night and he vents to me. While we play hours of video games, of course. I've changed a few details for privacy because I wanted to give a thorough example. This is shockingly common. I know like 8 people who have at one point been in a relationship like this. Whatever mistreating behavior is seen publicly is always worse behind closed doors. He's not just playing video games to escape reality. He's playing to escape her reality show. Story 2. After my ex and I broke up, she told me that she couldn't find a notebook of hers, that if I found it in my stuff to please throw it away. It was her personal thoughts and weren't meant to be read by anyone else. I told her I wouldn't read it, and I meant it. I had no intention of disobeying her request. A year later, I was going through a box and found a notebook I didn't recognize and had long forgotten my pledge to my ex. I just thought, what's this? And opened it up. By the time I realized it was the notebook she asked about, I already had the gist of it. It wasn't a diary. She'd been spying on me and journaling all her findings. A page would read like, 4:55 p.m., says he has to work late. 6 p.m., his office light is on, so are Michelle's and Jennifer's, but Jennifer's car isn't there. 7:30 p.m., his car is still there, the office light is on, and Michelle's car is still in the parking lot. 12:30 p.m., his car is gone for lunch. So is Tina's. Neither are at parents' condo. She was good at it, too. Never once did I catch her, or even caught a glimpse of what I thought might be her car. Never did I come home unexpectedly and find her not home. Nothing. She was regularly acting as a PI, thinking I was flirting with every girl I worked with. Story 3. I told my wife it makes me sad when she yelled at me. Her response? Oh, boo-hoo, the little boy is depressed. Go ahead and cry, little baby. This was because she felt I didn't do enough around the house while I was doing an intensive nursing course. I tried to talk about it, and she just shut me down. Said I was manipulative, then went silent. So I left her. She voluntarily went to couples counseling with me and started seeing a therapist on her own for her own volition. And they referred her to a psychiatrist who diagnosed and she started taking meds. She literally did everything to fix herself, so I'd take her back. I participated openly and honestly with couples counseling, saw my own therapist, and also ended up getting medicated. Turns out we were both part of the problem and we both stepped up for each other. Now we're unbreakable. We communicate openly and we love each other for who we are. But it took me leaving for her to realize she had problems that I couldn't help her with. I think I was an enabler. Sometimes you have to exit the game to realize you were playing in the wrong settings. Story 4. I'm dealing with this issue right now. I've never learned how to fight. My instinct has always been to just not start conflict, and if I do, I try to diffuse it as quickly as possible to end the discomfort. The result is that, when conflict has arisen, I don't hear out what the other person is saying or think about what I want. I just panicked and shut down. I assume we're having a fight because I did something wrong and I take it personally. When I don't feel like I deserve the blame, which I'm assuming is getting put on me, I lash out and think of any way the other person has wronged me to throw against them. I assume that a fight is a reflection of how someone feels about me. And until I hear them apologize, I feel like they hate me on some level. My wife said something to me recently that broke me with how simple it is. Fighting is just someone trying to show you they're feeling something with a great deal of intensity. It's not them trying to tear you down. It's them being willing to show you an ugly side of themselves. Being willing to show that side takes a degree of trust and vulnerability. I'm really trying to learn how to fight and get comfortable with conflict. That has been a struggle. Story 5. If either or both display contempt for one another, I'm not talking about irritation or annoyance or even anger. Those are all emotions that indicate where some work can be done, but aren't indicators of the end. I'm talking about sneering, repulsed, condescending, no respect, full-on contempt. It's been over for a while when things get to this point. I was out hiking with friends once and we found a downed tree. The bottom was twisted up dry root chunks, pale brown bark, and withered crispy leaves. Up at the top of the tree, the bark was still vibrant. Bright green leaves unfurled, even some new growth. The water the tree had been pulling up from the earth was still flowing upwards, leaving the dry and twisted bottom half and go and dusty, supporting the top for however much longer the water would last. Our friend looked at it, pointed to the place on the tree where you could see that change and said, "This tree doesn't know it's ended yet." If you show contempt for your partner or vice versa, your relationship doesn't know it's ended yet. Story 6. Number 1. Constantly posting on social media how amazing and perfect that love is. Number 2. Breaking up and getting back together over and over, especially in the first few months. I know a girl who does both of these constantly. I mean, like 4 to 5 posts a day how people say her love won't last, but he's my man and I'm his girl forever. Every time I meet the guy, he's an ex-con or a former user that got her pregnant or gave her some attention. So maybe a former criminal should be on the list of signs it won't last. Either way, we all see it coming from a mile away when 2 months later they break up and she's on to the next one doing the same exact song and dance. Now she's getting lip injections and doing a bunch of stuff to her, so mental illness likely is playing a role in all of this too. While I don't have a perfect relationship, my wife and I were friends for 10 years before we dated, so we have no problem being open and communicating. We don't post things on social media. Find someone that makes you laugh and you genuinely love hanging out with. Someday looks will fade, but you'll still have your buddy. Story 7. Not being open about your finances and on the same page about financial goals. I'm in my late 20s and I see this often with some of my friends that are recently married. One person in the couple is disciplined and wants to save money for the future, whereas the other person selfishly spends money on frivolous, unnecessary purchases. This is even more of an issue if their finances are combined and or if the one person is a majority breadwinner. I even know someone who has half a dozen maxed out credit cards and did not disclose this to their partner before cohabitating. Not everyone is in the same place financially, and that's okay. But to put no effort into improving your financial situation and consequently dragging down someone who is not? Another thing is constant social media posts about how wonderful they are together or how much they love each other with cheesy image macros. I can understand newlyweds or a new relationship, but when it's constant for a long time, she's my rock, my other half. They're trying to convince themselves more than they're trying to convince other people. I have a couple friends who are like this. It's usually pictures of her with my other half. I don't know how I existed without you, baby. Type of thing every other day. And by the half of the year, it's some cryptic image macro with sometimes the weapon you keep the closest is the one to hurt you in the heart. Some other nonsense. Story 8. When one is really attractive and the other isn't. A couple of decades ago, this didn't matter since people weren't always aware of their own value in the dating market. The number of potential partners will likely be limited to their own town, etc. In the age of social media and the internet, everyone who is attractive is definitely aware of their relative value and we're programmed to seek out the best potential partner. If this discrepancy is really big and obvious, it won't last, since the more attractive partner on some level may think they're compromising or getting a bad deal. Obviously, assuming equality in other areas since people stay in relationships for money and all kinds of reasons. I've seen this so many times with people I know, and it always ends that way after the initial honeymoon phase, and it's always initiated by the more attractive partner. I think there are even some studies in this that show that similar attraction is the most healthy for relationships. Story 9. Many years ago, I got involved with someone who had borderline personality disorder, or BPD. It wasn't diagnosed. The thing about BPD is that they adore you and idolize you so hard you're high on a pedestal. Very flattering. Then it could be months, years later, you just can't measure up and you fall hard, in their eyes, and never recover no matter how hard you try. Then the contempt sets in. She eventually became unglued and downright evil and cruel, which was contempt in overdrive. Eventually went to a therapist. Neither one of us knew, but he was a specialist in BPD. He had her number in a session or two. It was scary and freaky. He broke his ethical boundaries and in confidence told me that I needed to leave ASAP. I was in danger. I did leave and posed it as doing her a favor because I'm so awful, and I agree 100% with her assessment of me. She bought that at first. I went zero contact, changed my phone number, but she found me, stole my car, showed up unexpectedly, had to get a restraining order. It didn't stop until I threatened to go to the church pastor. She was a church leader, if you can believe that. She did finally disappear. Story 10. Repeated patterns of short but very passionate relationships. It's never a slow burn type of thing with these people. It's always a seriously radical, unhinged relationship where things are going really, really great, and they have to let everyone know how great it is. But then that passion swings in the other direction rather quickly. Then you get to watch them slinging stuff on social media. Sometimes they might even make a post to let us know they resolved their arguments before they ultimately break up. That's my favorite part, because it's like when parents resolve conflict in front of their kids on purpose to set an example, and then go, sometimes mommy and daddy have disagreements, and that's okay. But now it's someone from my high school, making their closing statements and letting me know that it's all okay now. I love that stuff. It's like watching ants. That was a long-winded, totally not specific answer. Story 11. Engagements that last longer than a year. I had a coworker who had got engaged to her fiancé after 2 years of dating, and had been engaged for 8 years before they finally got married. They lasted about 5 months. You know what happened? Husband went to a party at the house of this couple he knew and got super intoxicated, so he decided not to drive home. The couple were also hammered and nobody was able to drive him home, so he stayed the night. He even called his wife, my coworker, to let her know he was sleeping on the couch and would be home in the morning, because there was another woman in the house, not mattering that she was married and he slept on the couch and called her beforehand to let her know what was going on so she wouldn't be worried. She accused him of violating her trust and filed for divorce. This coworker of mine was extremely judgmental of others and would jump to crazy conclusions sometimes, so I think that was a contributing factor in them not lasting long. But I still think the fact that they stayed engaged for 8 years showed they could maintain a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but not a married one. Story 12. In my experience, unfortunately, codependency, when you feel like you're a parent and a therapist instead of their partner, them dumping all their problems or venting about them but not letting you do the same. If you're venting or talk about personal stuff and they don't acknowledge what you've been through, and immediately after they start talking about their problems, you feel like you can't say no. When they ask you to do something or about something, and when you say no or anything like, I'm not really sure, or I don't think so, or I don't know, they keep asking you even though you've stated that you don't want to or haven't clearly said yes. When they ask you to do something and you say no, but then they ask the same thing again a while later, this can also be a tactic used to manipulate you. Guilt tripping. When you feel like you can't tell them what's wrong or you feel like something is wrong in the relationship, lack of communication, something they said the night before you felt uneasy about, etc., pressuring you to do something that you clearly don't want to or are unsure about, asking if you could stop doing something just because they don't like it, but it's not because they're uncomfortable, it's just that they don't like it, i.e. stop playing a game, watching a certain show, dressing a certain way, etc., wanting 100% of your attention all the time, even when they know you're busy. Using an example of something that happened to me because I can't describe it any way else. I was anxious about not being able to make the senior volleyball team, and they knew. When I texted them overjoyed that I was on the team, they texted back, does this mean we have to hang out less now? When they know you're uncomfortable with something or having a clear boundary over something, or when they know that you've had issues or trauma over a certain thing, and yet they continue to bring up or push. Being late all the time without any warning that they're going to be late. Worse, when they don't even acknowledge that they were late or made you wait. When they have no motivation to do anything, or no motivation to make plans for themselves and force you to do it for them. When they refuse to get help for themselves in any way, not having skills that any person would need to live on their own. Cooking, cleaning, planning, budgeting, or lack of money awareness. If they made you feel mad or sad or scared and they refuse to acknowledge it or apologize. Story 13. My cousin and I got married 2 months apart. His romance was really out of some fairy tale. all over each other even after 2 years of dating and having a grand wedding in 2 different countries. I attended neither one as I hated my aunt for being a super witch to my spouse and trying to ruin my wedding day so badly. We, both couples, were invited to my Nana's house, and the whole time they were making everyone uncomfortable with constant kissing, sitting in each other's lap, talking about their intimate life, eating from one plate and him feeding her with a spoon, and to top it all off, he put shoes on her when it was time to leave, like she's an infant. She couldn't shut up either about what true love is and how she's the only lucky one and how my spouse and I look like an old tired couple due to no physical touching, etc. My Nana said to him, "I give you some good few months and a couple of miserable years and then you'll be divorced." He's divorced and left the country because that last trip to jail was brutal on him and his kids. My spouse and I are about to celebrate our 10th anniversary in a couple of months. Story 14. Online or long-distance relationships. I'm sorry, there may be a slim chance that if you move to the same place that it could work out, but from my experience I've seen way too many pseudo-relationships like this break up. Honorable mention to relationships where the partners have no actual chemistry and or relationships only done for the sake of saying you have a relationship. Those never end well. Also honorable mention, relationships made after just recently meeting a person. 6 months, if not a year, should be ideal for you to decide if you really want to be in a relationship with that one person. At least it's much better than the same week you met them. Take your time in picking your special someone. Make sure you truly enjoy spending that time with them rather than just doing it for the sake of it. Story 15. I already put one here, but one, or maybe even both of the people in the relationship, refused to openly communicate and try to solve problems in the relationship together. Had an ex that taught me trying to communicate about how I felt, and how he felt about me being annoying and overly attached. But in reality, I just wanted him to be able to be honest with me and vice versa. Let him bring up things that bothered me often and try to just doing things that make him happy. A while later, he ghosted me, except for a very last text, which was him asking for pics before he left. I said no, and about a week and a half later, his profile had him kissing a girl he would hang out with often. People refusing to communicate, unless it's due to a trauma or social problems, etc., usually ends up in situations like my own, sadly. And they won't last long at all. Story 16. Not me, but I've noticed my friend's relationship. She thinks he might cheat the second he gets, and she's literally glued to him. I haven't gone out with just him in 2 to 3 years now. She's always there. She thinks he's into Russian blonde girls because his previous girlfriend was Russian and they were together for 2 years before she cheated on him. She's very skinny and doesn't eat much, but is always in the gym with us, always in a bad mood. She doesn't have power to lift or do basic exercises and always ruins the training session for us with her attitude. Always complains and takes a lot of his time in the gym by arguing with him. Always wants to be taken to restaurants even though they can't save much on money and spend on stuff. She doesn't work. She's in college and they're married. She brings nothing to the family. It's all on him. These are all red flags for me. He's done some stupid things too, and that's why I think they won't last long. Story 17. I don't know if anyone will read this, but it's one of my favorite stories. My stepfather and his ex-wife. My stepfather, we'll call him Tony, is from Italy and moved here to America to be with his then girlfriend, now ex-wife, who we'll call Sarah. Tony didn't know any of the customs, but wanted to do something sweet for her. He bought her a nice ring with a nice diamond on it and brought it to her, at her parents' house where she lived. Upon seeing the ring, she began exclaiming, "Oh my God!" By this point, Tony was confused and speechless. I didn't know that in America, diamond rings were used excessively for marriage proposals. Sarah started to shout at him, "What are you doing? Get down on your knees." Another tradition Tony was completely unfamiliar with. She left the room to tell her mother, who came in crying. Tony was completely confused. She hollered for her husband, who came in excited, sobbing. At this point, Tony was thinking to himself, "It's a nice ring, but what in the world is wrong with these people?" His English wasn't great at the time, so he immediately called his one Italian friend Gio at the time to tell him what was going on. Gio responds, "You did what?" And as he tries to catch his breath from laughing, he explains the custom of proposing and says, "Congratulations, Tony, you're engaged now." Tony responds, "I'm what? How do I take it back?" Gio, "You don't, unless you want the relationship to end immediately." Tony and Sarah got married, had a lovely daughter, and divorced before she was old enough to talk. He and my mother have been together for about 12 years, which is longer than when my mother and father were married. I'm happy to have him in the family. From what in the world is going on to I'm engaged, Tony's journey to becoming part of the family was quite the roller coaster. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. Ooh, I do this professionally. This is not clinically proven, this is 20 plus years of experience. I would say the below list varies from 50 to 80% accuracy over the long term. Separate bank accounts are a big red flag. All the arguments for it make sense, but it breeds secrecy. Partner 1 isn't allowed to randomly request to see Partner 2's electronic devices. Multiple breakups before marriage. Separate beds, especially if not officially separate beds. Just sleeping in any room other than the spouse because they sleep better. Arguments that blow over but are never resolved. Narcissistic partner. Obsessive gaming by one partner. Working second or third shift for no reason other than they like it or similar reasons. Almost a certainty to cause a problem if children are involved. Hidden spending. Hidden savings by one spouse in case I need to go. Prenuptial agreements when combined with other issues. Prenup provides an easy and safe way instead of encouraging couples to work out their issues. Third marriages. Pretty much 3/4 end in divorce. No spouse vacations regularly. Guy or girl nights frequently. Discussion eventually leads to comments like me time and need to get away and be my own person. Very bad arguments that lead one spouse to promise the other another child. Worst band-aid ever. Story 19. I saw a show once, and there was a researcher called John Gotham who watched hundreds of couples argue. Guess he was a sadist. He had 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse. If these showed up in the arguing, it was a sign that the relationship wouldn't last. These are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Among these, the one emotion that had the largest correlation between emotion and separation was contempt. From personal experience, my own relationship and others that I've viewed, this is true, especially showing contempt in front of other people. Showing contempt is a horrible sign in a relationship. It shows a lack of respect, lack of caring, and anger. It is incredibly hard to move forward in these cases. Story 20. Probably if neither of them or one of them doesn't understand boundaries, and if they do, they act like a piss baby when those boundaries are enforced. This can escalate to something very bad very quickly. I talk up my fiancé a lot, and he deserves it. He's an amazing man. However, I will admit my fiancé was very reactionary when it came to boundaries, and when we called him out on his guilt-tripping behavior, he didn't speak to me for a week. Thankfully, he asked if we can talk, and we worked together on listening to boundaries and establishing them better. Boundaries didn't mean a lack of love, it meant, hey, I love you still, I just don't want this thing happening due to this reason. Overall, if neither partner listens to the other's boundaries or gets very reactionary about them and enforced, then either one of them is going to be mistreated or manipulated, or one of them is going to end up gone. That's how every encounter with a woman who has said no to a man has happened. That's how mistreating relationships happen. That's how men harm women because they assert boundaries. Clear establishment of boundaries is a good thing. It doesn't mean you love the person any less, it means you want to be comfortable in the relationship while still being safe with yourself. If your partner doesn't understand that, then hit the bricks before they hit you with a brick. Story 21. When one partner says they're going to go clean for the other, and the other thinks they can fix the first one, currently watching this happen to one of my partner's friends. She has 2 kids and just broke it off with her long-term ex because he couldn't commit to marrying her. Fair enough. But she immediately starts dating this new guy in his mid-20s with substance issues, and they're taking it way too fast. He's already talking about marriage and going clean from coke for her barely a month in. He met the kids and everything. And she's still living with her ex. Maybe I'm biased because I grew up around unreliable acts or always going clean for one reason or another that never panned out. Good for him if he can pull it off, but I think she should know better than to just take this dude she's known less than a month at his word, especially with kids involved. Story 22. I've got a perfect one, but it's pretty long. Girlfriend's sister has been seeing a guy for a few weeks, then goes off to Ibiza. She comes back and tells me she slept with a married man out there, which I didn't know about. We're at a barbecue and she said, I missed you to him. And I unknowingly said, missed you so much that she went off to Ibiza for a week. Didn't know she had slept with other men out there. Then they ended up arguing. So a couple of weeks after that, did they split up? Nope. What did they do? Oh yes, they planned to have a kid and move into the shed at the end of his mom's garden. Yep, they've now got 2 kids and split up 3 years later, and he's constantly sending her mistreatment and messing her around, also threatening her dad, and spreading rumors that she did substances while pregnant. An absolutely messy situation. Story 23. And both sides don't sacrifice their own time for the other person's interests or likes. Not saying that you both need to be 150% into the other person's hobbies, but at least attempting to do them or having fun while trying. The amount of guys I see do XYZ and are like, yeah, man, I sure do like time away from the wife. I'm like, what? Is your wife not your best friend? The person you want to share all experiences with? Like, I understand a night out, but your night out should not be something that you look forward to more than being with your loved ones. If that is the case, then I mean, why are you even in a relationship? Also, I used to have a bud who would love to do XYZ with a group of friends. Then got into a relationship, and at first it was like, good for you. He spent less time with us, which is completely acceptable. I get it, you want to do things with your friend and significant other, but eventually it would be months without any words or even chatting with us. Which again, I get it, everyone has their own thing going on. But the one time we do get to hang out with him, I get to hear the snarky comment of, why are you wasting time doing XYZ with people from her in the background? And I was like, oh boy, that isn't going to last long. 4 to 5 years later, they just had a kid together, and I haven't spoken to him in 3 years. Hopefully everything is going okay, but man, when your wife dictates whom you get to spend time with and what you do, that is just tragic. I feel sorry for him. I hope they're happy together and he manages. The only thing I can do at this point is be a friend if in 10 years he reaches out and picks up where we left off. Story 24. This is just an observation and doesn't apply to everyone, as many may be mature enough to handle it, but with one of my friends, I noticed throughout their relationships, whenever they pressure their partner into making an open relationship, means that their relationship is fading, and breaking up isn't far behind. They also keep talking about their partner's income and how they want to travel internationally and party in that income. My friend is a walking red flag. Again, nothing in open relationships. Many can and do make it work, but it may not be for everyone. And if you're pressured into it, then there is deception happening to you, and the relationship is troubled, especially when you don't give your honest opinion in the matter. Story 25. The groom shows up at my door at 2 a.m. on the day of wedding, accusing me, the former best man, of seducing his fiancée. He's watched so many movies or books or Reddit stories with best men winning the bride and or cheating with best man, it became his number one fear that he decided to get hammered and nip it in the bud. Again, I'm a former best man as a result of further means to nip it in the bud and him pulling a fast one to show he's a better man in front of the other groomsmen in public. I still don't understand that logic. He further went on to say I, the best friend, should have seen the logic and that he was testing me. That by walking away, I was running away and it proved him right. Again, don't understand intoxicated logic. He said he was there to settle the score. He ran forward, tripped on the curb, crying or screaming how I ruined his life. I called his mom or dad to pick him up, who were beyond embarrassed. Later, he cheated on his wife, while accusing her of cheating. He continues to tell how I was the cause of the affairs, even 5 years going. I'm a legend in his family. I work some of his cousins who tell me all the stories, including some of our childhood that are so distorted they're no longer fact but fiction, which some have even begun if you should be admitted to the psych ward. That's where I work, by the way. Story 26. I have an ex I'm no contact with who I dated in high school for 3 years. We ended it in good terms because we went to different colleges but are contacts on social media. For the next 12 years, he'd date different people but still talk about me. My career went up and he was proud to tell the girls he dated about me and even discuss my life based on social media, according to many mutual friends. It's as if he developed a parasocial relationship with me. We hadn't hung out in more than a decade. We're now in our 30s, he just got married and has been posting his wife all over social media with cheesy captions. A week after the wedding, he reached out to me saying he was thinking of me. This was such a big red flag to me. I didn't even open the message. Story 27. Untreated depression or mental illness. It's difficult to properly care for your partner when you cannot care for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Contentment and mockery. Logically, it makes sense, but it's difficult to recognize when you're actively doing it, and because you come across as unsupportive, your partner likely won't feel like they can bring the issue up with you, which will lead to you growing apart. Keeping score of everything. Who does the dishes more, who cleans the bedroom more, who does the groceries more, etc. If there's an imbalance, discuss it. But keeping track implies that there's a lack of trust. There should be give and take from both ends. There's no reason to keep track unless there's a serious imbalance. Broken bird syndrome. You cannot enter a relationship expecting to fix or change someone. They want to have to do it themselves. This can lead to resentment, contempt, Frustration and both parties feeling lost and confused. The point of a relationship isn't to fix someone for the better, it's for you to grow alongside each other and to raise each other up as much as you can. That's not to say if your partner has negative traits, do not discuss them. But if you find a problem in everything your partner does and you're just waiting for the day a switch goes off in the brain for them to change, it's going to result in both parties feeling very hurt. Being judgmental, whether it's towards friends, family, work, the way something is done, etc. Having concerns is fine, but if judgment is being casted often, it can become an issue. Incompatibility. Having similar libidos is important. That's not to say a high libido and low libido can make things work, but there should be great communication around the subject as to avoid feelings of rejection, which can lead to insecurity and eventually resentment. Absolutely zero arguments. It's not normal for couples to be on the same page 100% of the time. Couples need to know how to say no to each other, how to discuss conflict and how to settle things and agree to disagree when the time calls for it. In a similar light, constantly arguing. You have to be able to compromise and you have to be accepting of your partner. Constantly picking fights shows a lack of acceptance. There's no reason to be at each other's throats 24/7. It's like if friends outside of the relationship. Our partners cannot fulfill our every need. Friendships are incredibly important. And what's even more important is being able to have a good friend group that's separated from your partner. Mutual friends are so great to have. But it's also important for you both to find your own people and to form connections outside of you two and your mutuals. This isn't to be confused with isolating your partner from your friends. Obviously, introduce them to the group and invite them to things. But it's important to have your own source of friends. Always being in a bad mood. I'm guilty of this and it plays into having untreated mental illness and can lead to being resentful and full of contempt. If you're always in a bad mood, that is going to negatively impact your partner. When you're in a relationship, your feelings are not just your feelings anymore, as you now have someone whose mood can be influenced by how you react and respond to things. Being highly emotional and reactive in a relationship is similar to water damage. It starts to seep in slowly, and at first it doesn't seem that bad. It's just a few wet spots, but they dry out relatively fine. Except each time water gets into a crevice, the chance of mold growing increases drastically. Until suddenly you have to remove an entire section of drywall because the damage is so severe. Having a bad mood can result in your foundation molding, and once mold settles in, it's near impossible to remove it all. The damage is done and the mold makes it grow wider until suddenly your foundation has crumbled. Substance and drinking problems. Obviously, this isn't the case for everyone. There's an amazing amount of couples who have stuck together despite one party struggling with this, and it's heartwarming to see. However, it is foolish to assume that if you struggle with something similar, you'll be a part of that lucky demographic who stuck through the rough times together. If you struggle with that, it is so incredibly important to be open with your partner about it and to understand that it's not their responsibility to help you get clean. You have to want it too. They can be selfish people, and that selfishness can really shine through when they're in bad spots in relationships. A relationship is about being selfless, and that's difficult to be in. This can also play into broken bird syndrome depending on the relationship dynamic. We're so similar, like down to tiny details, we should totally be together. There's an obvious one, but another one is also when a couple kind of molds into the same person. Oftentimes it is one partner that will take on the other person's likes and lifestyle while suppressing their own individuality. My former roommate's girlfriend moved in and I watched her suppress herself and lash out at him. Other friends that were hanging around, and especially me for a couple months till I said who cares, I'm done putting up with this situation. My roommate, on the other hand, would also start turning into his girlfriend in other ways. But mostly who there were as a couple was influenced by the things he likes and people he knows. I don't know how long they will last, but I have no interest in sticking around to find out. This is a specific example, but I do see this thing pretty often. This is just the most detailed example I have. When one or both parties won't do normal and basic things in the relationship because their last partner never did them, so they had to do it all the time and now it's ruined. Example, I don't like cooking anymore because my ex never cooked, so I had to do all the cooking. Another red flag I've seen is when someone's partner talks about how terrible their ex was before their current situation to literally every single person they get introduced to. Like, any way they can bring up this old flame and how terrible they were is a good bonding moment for them with people. Almost like it's a part of their personality now. It's like your friend brings up wanting to go out and hit a club tonight and the partner's like, oh man, my ex used to work at a club and so I'd have to pick them up late at night after work and they'd be hammered and mean every night. Story 28. If I can share a tidbit from my last relationship, I had just finished wisdom teeth surgery. My parents had come over and were helping me out. My girlfriend at the time invited herself over, and I'm thinking she will help my parents who are both old and have injuries. My father has drop foot and my mother has hip dysplasia. No. Contrary, she just sits there and just watches them struggle, meanwhile I'm under the stuff up to the nines. As the day passes into the next, my parents leave and my girlfriend at the time stays. I'm on the couch holding ice packs to both sides of my jaw and I ask her for a bottle of water. I'm in pain and need to be hydrated. She turns to me and with the straightest face says, "I'm not your mother, and I'm not going to spoil you or take care of you to the level she does." I was shocked and angry, so I got up and got myself some water. I should have told her to get off, but I hadn't fully processed her words. A few months go by and she gets us into a car accident. We didn't get hurt badly, just a few dings, but she had a pretty good concussion. I'm taking care of her, watching over her, and the words she said the day after my wisdom teeth surgery ring through my head, and that's when I realized I deserved better. After a few months, I ended it, and I believe this is related very much to contempt and the more relevant comments in this thread. I'm thankful I didn't marry this person or move in with him like she had been trying to force me to do, because after that, the whole relationship started to decay, and I started to see her for who she was. I'll be the first to admit I'm not a perfect person and never will be. But I'll be damned if I'm ever disrespected like that again in my life. Story 29. For younger couples especially, they seem to be more interested in the idea of being a couple or married than the actual person they're with. I had a relative who got married in the late 20s to a person I never heard her really talk about as an individual. I never heard her talk about him. It was always, "Oh, he's going to be such a handsome groom," or "I'm so excited for the wedding." But I literally couldn't tell you a thing about his personality or wants or needs from my many conversations with her about them. Privately, I told another closer family member I had a feeling it wouldn't last more than 3 years. They finalized their divorce almost to the day 3 years later. Unlucky guess, but still. Turns out his personality was trash. He was selfish, lied a lot, and didn't have any interests or ambitions beyond hanging with his buddies while she pulled in their only income. She was watching all her friends get married and wanted to make it work so she wouldn't be left behind. And most of the fam could feel it from the first day we spent time with him. Story 30. Naturally progressing their timeline. Girl had a miscarriage, breaks up with baby daddy. Not married. Girl meets new guy almost immediately. Within a month, she has moved in with him. Within 3 months, they're married. Within 1 year after marriage, they both bought a house. Bought vacation land and she's pregnant. Within 3 years of meeting her one and only true soulmate, she's completely changed his life. Until he told her he's miserable and left in the last 2 years. She's met, moved her toddler and herself into his home, and married a second man. Her toddler mentioned wanting a chicken, so now they own chickens and goats, and she's reinvented herself as a country girl. Daughter has a strong relationship with her bio father and his family, but mom posts pictures of her current one and only soulmate tagging him as daddy and posting cute daddy and daughter quotes. The new daddy's face over the past 2 years shows a very different story. All the photos of him smiling and laughing and hanging out with his family have been replaced by pictures of him working around his house building chicken coops and gardens. His smile is definitely not as wide and natural as it once was. It's like watching history repeating itself in her men. I truly hope they make it, but he's not looking so happy these days.
At what point did you realize it was time to give up on a relationship? I was seeing someone I was very much in love with for almost 4 years. Sharing your love and life with someone should supplement, enhance your life, not diminish it. When it got to the point everything in my life was suffering because of my relationship, it was time to end it. My work was slipping, my management team was telling me my performance was dropping, my friends barely spoke to me anymore. I was arguing with my family a lot because I was always in a bad mood. It felt like at the time that it would be impossible to live without her. But it was also impossible to live with her in my life, so no matter how I felt, it had to end. I'm now in a 3-year relationship with who I hope will spend the rest of her life with me. And my ex from this post is currently happy in her life in a different country. Follow your heart. But when your heart starts to screw all over your life, follow your brain. I bet his friends were thrilled when they finally broke up. Story 2. It's become rare that we go 3 days without fighting. Always over stupid crap. It's not just mild fighting either. It gets nasty. The other day I made plans to go to a party with her, then spend the night at my friend's house. Even though she knew ahead of time that I'd be leaving at a certain time, as soon as I left, she started texting me, freaking out, and sending me horrible messages like, "Screw you and go screw yourself." Even as I told her that we shouldn't fight and that I love her. She never let up until late the next day.
When fights like that happen as often as days where we get along, I start to question if it's worth it or not. Story 3. I gave up on all relationships after my last one ended back in 2002. I did some hard thinking and concluded that just as Peter Dinklage was never physically built to be in the NBA, I'm not emotionally built to be in a relationship. I also decided I wouldn't look for whatever I could settle for and just BS myself that I was happy because of some fear of being alone all my life, like 75% of married people are. I made up the number, in case someone's going to try and fact check. It sucks, but it's better than going through the have-loss cycle of one relationship after another and knowing each one was because of my flaws that I either can't change or won't change. Besides, as scrappy as my life has been, there's no way I'd want to drag someone down with me. Story 4. When she began fooling around with her ex-husband a few weeks ago. 6 years of my life I wasted on this girl. I supported her financially while I was in the military. I paid for the house, the bills, bought her a nice vehicle all while she went to school to get a degree. I got out and wanted to go to school full-time, and no, I have to have a full-time job and be a full-time student. It didn't work. And so, because I wasn't able to manage being a full-time in the classroom student and a 50-plus hour a week nighttime factory job, she goes and sleeps with her ex-husband and blames me for it. Now, here I am, broke as heck, living in the same house with her while she goes and spends all day with her ex-husband. Screw you. I gave up my career for you. I was 12 years away from retirement. I supported you financially and emotionally. I put you through school. I treated you the way that a woman should be treated. Can't believe that you would rather be with that spiked up and jobless. It blows my freaking mind. I guess you two deserve each other. You broke me. I don't even know what to do anymore. Story 5. I flew out to see my girlfriend for a 3-day weekend to celebrate her graduation and didn't feel like I had a girlfriend most of the time. I feel like I gave her a lot of leeway and space and she was hanging out with friends and family, but on the final day I was there, she barely wanted to talk to be around me. She didn't want to eat anything in the morning until I made myself breakfast, and suddenly she was hungry. We watched some television in her apartment because she didn't feel like going anywhere. Her friend called her and asked if she wanted to go to a bar, and suddenly she perks up, changes into a dress, and is ready to go, and says on the phone within earshot, "Oh, I just need to drop off my boyfriend at the airport, then we can go have some fun." Her friend was very rude, talking as if I weren't even there, and took her time driving to the airport, only getting me to the terminal a half an hour before my flight was supposed to take off. I got out, grabbed my stuff, and had to run to the terminal to make my flight. I realized on the flight that I didn't even kiss my girlfriend before leaving to go home. That was pretty much the moment I realized that this relationship wasn't working, and looking back, I figured out that she liked having a boyfriend so she wouldn't have to be alone when she was lonely and only spent time with me on her terms. It was convenient for her. Totally one-sided and unhealthy. I tried to see her one more time when I was in town for other business, and she was too busy to hang out. So I broke up with her and haven't talked to her since. Story 6. I'm not a jealous person, so I don't really catch on. She would say things like, "Andrew called me today," or ex-fiance, or "I keep wanting to talk to Andrew, but I know I shouldn't." I always just looked at her lovingly and told her I trusted her. Once, after a counseling session, she was complaining about the lack of intimacy in her marriage. Since the first month, she hadn't initiated with me once. I opened up about how much it sucks to have a wife who doesn't want to have intimacy. Then the fight escalated. It ended with something like, "You don't even want to have intimacy. Not with you." I tried to make it work after that, but they just pulled me down. She wanted me to give up my dreams to accommodate the fact that the flight from LA to see her family would be an hour longer than where we were at the time. Eventually, she said if I didn't go to the church she wanted, that she'd divorce me. I called her on it, and she filed for an emergency divorce 2 days later. Called me a week later, begging me to take her back. To be honest, the second I signed the paperwork, it felt like a huge cloud lifted out of my life and I could breathe again. I miss her some nights, but I know she made me hate who I was and stifled my dreams and my compassion. I'm so glad it ended. It just sucks being 23 and divorced. Story 7. This is probably going to get buried, but I don't care. It'll feel good to get this off my chest. I was with my ex-boyfriend for 4 years. I helped him through a lot and was a shoulder and a rock for a lot of things, only for him to break me down a lot. He would tell me he was self-conscious because I didn't look like the type of girl he would be with. I was stupid. I stayed with him through him cheating on me a couple times and attempting to cheat numerous other times. Constant emotional cheating while he was away at school, and I was busting my ass back home to make money for an apartment for us. The last time I found him trying to talk to another girl, I just told him I couldn't do it anymore and ended up walking away. I remember sitting in my car forcing him to have the breakup convo with me and him telling me I was so cold. Oh well. That's what years loving someone incapable of loving anyone but themselves will do to them. I'm better off today even though it still hurts sometimes. Jeff, if you see this, screw you for wasting my time and filling my head with empty promises. Story 8. It was exactly 2 years ago, August 2012. She had just given birth to our second child in June. We decided it was best that she stay home and raise the kids for a bit while I continued to work full-time. So I came home from work one afternoon and found my older daughter napping in her room. Not unusual. She was 4 at the time and would still nap sometimes. It was then I heard the baby crying from my bedroom. When I entered, I saw the shades down, my significant other sleeping, and the baby in her bassinet. It was obvious the baby had been crying for quite a long time. My guess would be at least an hour. Her face was beet red. She was a complete mess, screaming at the top of her lungs. Her mother slept through this like a rock. I took the baby to the other room and cleaned her up, calmed her down, and fed her. Her clothes were so soiled I had to throw them in the garbage. When I opened the garbage, I saw the empty vodka bottle, but it was no surprise. Their mother was drinking again. The next few weeks were such a mess, and eventually I had to have police remove her from our home, and I took custody of her children. We'd been through it before. Her drinking, cheating, rehab, and cleaning up constantly, trying to fix things. That sort of crap was so tiresome, and I did not feel like doing it again. Our children deserve better. They deserve to be safe. Story 9. After numerous times of him pressuring me to have intimacy, me denying him, then him accusing me out of embarrassment that I was corrupting him of his faith, I was mad. He said he wanted to wait until marriage to have intimacy, but the second we would start fooling around, that all would change. The final straw came when he had his pastor come talk to me about how my faith can overcome my sinful urges. Mind you, this is in front of his entire family after a church service that I didn't even want to go to. Since he couldn't control himself once he got a chubby, it was obviously my fault. They completely crossed the line because I'm not even religious and only went to church with him to be polite. Story 10. To summarize as best I can, my father suddenly fell into a coma my junior year of college. I flew out to see him and my mom and spent about 2 weeks there before the doctors confirmed our fears. He was unlikely to ever come out of it, and would have significant damage if he did, likely blind and mute, almost entirely paralyzed, etc. Per his living will, we asked that my father be taken off of life support. I wasn't really in contact with anyone from college during this time period, as I obviously had other things on my mind. When I got home, the first thing I did was go to my boyfriend's room, who still lived in the dorms, to tell him what had happened. I got about 5 minutes into the explanation, clearly distraught, when a girl I'd never met before walked in. My boyfriend proceeded to greet her and chat with her for 45 minutes, completely ignoring me the entire time. I finally left, went back to my room, and cried until I went to sleep. Next morning, he knocks on my door. I assumed to check on me. Nope. Instead, he sits me down and tells me that I'm the reason he never has any fun at college and that things needed to change or we needed to take a break. We were on again, off again anyway, so this wasn't exactly out of the blue. However, it really made me realize that he didn't actually care about me in any way I could understand. Apparently, while I had been standing by my father, he had been getting intoxicated and flirting with this girl. Drinking and flirting being two things he constantly reprimanded me for, perceived or otherwise. So I happily agreed to break it off then and there. Funny thing is, that girl turned out to be certifiably insane. Started stalking him months later. By then, he was asking to get back together with me. Shamefully, I actually entertained the notion for a little while, but then he lost his crap at me when he found out I was trying for grad school, and I remember just what a miserable person he was. Story 11. I know it sounds harsh, but when I got bored of him. We dated for about 18 months, and within the last few months, I was bored whenever I was with him. Whenever I asked him what he'd like to do, he'd replied, "I don't know," or "whatever you want." He didn't have much else going on in life, so we didn't have much to talk about. He stopped hanging out with his other friends. The classic, "How was your day?" never changed. I'm also a hardworking student, and it disturbed me that he had a 0.75 GPA at community college. I tried to help him with his own work and encouraged him to finish his essays on time, but that was difficult with his ADD. This was after I did what I could to help him graduate high school. I lived with his aunt, who called me a manipulative witch, and whenever he fought with her, I ran away from home and I spent hours trying to talk to him on the phone and calm him down so I could go pick him up. So I was going nowhere fast, and there was nothing I could do to change that. Man, that feels good to get off my chest. 0.75 GPA? I'm no mathematician, but even I know that's not a passing grade. Sounds like she was dating a potato, not a person. Story 12. About 3 years into a long-distance relationship, I was miserable, and he was growing extremely distant. I decided I needed to know where we were headed, so I floated the idea of me moving closer to him to see how he'd react. Well, he reacted badly. Freaked out and then completely stopped talking to me, apart from messaging me at 4 a.m. a week later to let me know he had a new girlfriend and that his auntie had cancer and would probably pass away in a few months. It was heartbreaking at first, but it was absolutely the best thing that could have happened to me in that situation. About 4 months later, that new girlfriend dumped him and he came to me devastated and tried to get me to come visit him to fool around, but I had no time for that crap. He hasn't spoken to me since, and I am so much happier now. Story 13. This will probably get buried, but it was a very hard time for me, and I'd like to share with other Redditors who may be in the same situation. I was in a relationship for 2 years. He would make me feel incredibly insecure and tell me I was stupid all the time. He would break up with me roughly every 3 months, and we would still hang out and sleep together because I really loved him and wanted to spend time with him. He would text other girls he was trying to sleep with right in front of me when he'd be at my house. I would beg him to stop, and he wouldn't. Finally, the moment I realized it was time to be completely done was when I broke up with him for the first time over a small fight about Facebook. He started acting like the best boyfriend ever, and at that point I realized it would stop if we got back together. It was the hardest thing I've ever done because he finally showed me he cared and loved me, and I had to force myself to break up with him. I still remember him begging me to explain to him why I didn't want him, even though he was better. One of the first times I'd really seen him cry. Story 14. I'm literally in a parking lot right now waiting for my girlfriend of 4 years to get here so we can have dinner and have the talk. When things become more sadness and anger than happiness, it's time to walk away. I love this girl with all my heart, but if I can't keep her happy, we can't be happy. A friend of mine once told me that relationships of all kinds are like bank accounts. Good times fill the account, bad times drain it. If you find yourself constantly overdrafting, it's time to let both yourself and the other person free. In my situation, I love this girl with all of my heart. I can also say she's changed my life for the better in ways I can never thank her enough for. What I need to understand is that no matter how much I love her and how I would do anything to make her happy, if she isn't, then I have to let her be happy. Simply by trying to save us, I'm destroying her. I know she does love me as well, but you can't force happiness, even on yourself. Out of our care and love for each other, we keep trying to fix things after the arguments, but all we're doing is trying to force two mismatched puzzle pieces together. I would do anything for her, and what I have to keep telling myself is that I have to let her go so she can be happy. You can love someone with all your heart, but it has to be both ways. Thank you for the opportunity to vent. Update, dinner is at 6. Better head in and wait. Thanks for making me feel not alone, random internet folks. Update, dinner is done. We came home and continued to talk. Dinner didn't go well. She was angry and walked out. I packed everything to go and we came home. We know this is over. We know that we can't keep going on like we are. It seems everything we do upsets each other and the fights are getting worse and worse. It used to be occasional, then it progressed to monthly, and now it's an odd occurrence when we go 2 weeks without a major fight. I simply can't make her happy anymore. The person I am does not fit with the person she is. I need to let her go and be happy. I'm fighting myself every step of the way from breaking down and just trying to push everything back together again. Everywhere I look, I see the home we built together. Every painting on the wall, the damn wrinkle in the rug even. This is something we built together, and now it will fall apart. I bought this house before we got together, so we started discussing where she's going to go. I'm the breadwinner of the relationship, so I know she's not equipped to be out on her own. I offered to pay for her apartment. We will look on Wednesday for a nice condo downtown near her office in a nightlife area that we both love. I am the person I am today because of her. We built this home to what it is, and I can't simply tell her to move out. I can't live with her while we're separated either. I love her and will continue to make sure she's safe and taken care of even if she's not mine anymore. She was incredibly thoughtful and mature and said that I can't, but I insisted I ensure she has a roof over her head and does not struggle. She said one day I will love another girl, and she won't allow me to pay for her rent while I'm with her as it would not be right. So we agreed to pay off of 6 months. I'll prepay her rent to give her enough time to get on her feet. I'm overwhelmed right now and will probably just be on Reddit all night, so feel free to PM or post. Story 15. Broke up with my girlfriend of almost 2 years tonight. It was probably the hardest decision I've made. I feel like most of what I did just annoyed her, stressed her out. Then nothing sweet or helpful I did made it better. Intimacy became less frequent. Maybe I think I'm too much of a schmuck sometimes, or that she is. I also felt that maybe I wasn't ready to be with one girl for the rest of my life. I love this girl dearly, though. We are each other's best friends, and tonight I possibly cut her out of my life forever. I truly hope that isn't the case. Story 16. 4 years into it, and he hadn't yet figured out if he wanted to marry me. He's a great guy, and we really enjoyed each other's company. Families got along great, etc., but ultimately we were on different paths. I wanted to settle down, and he didn't know what he wanted. I figured if he didn't know after 4 years if I was the one, then I wasn't. We ended things very amicably. Still hung out because, hey, we like hanging out, so why not? 6 months later, I met someone else. We clicked and we knew within 2 weeks this was it. And it was. We've been married 8 years and have 2 beautiful kids together. My ex still hasn't settled down, though he's dated different women. When I got engaged, he asked if he blew it. I said, "Nah, I wasn't the one. You would have known if I were." I really hope he's happy. I knew he wouldn't be happy with me if we'd stayed together. I can't blame him at all for not wanting what I wanted. I'm not an easy person to live with. It's a hell of a commitment. I think that's when you know it's time to walk away. When you don't want the same things and you know you're never truly going to be fulfilled by staying with this person, even if you really enjoy being together. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 17. I have to post. She was the perfect girlfriend. She was considerate, smart, funny. We understood each other. I respect her opinion and she respects mine. We built a great relationship based on trust, friendship, respect, and understanding. We could talk for hours. Both of us studied software engineering. Her family was all right, and we were, for a couple of years, best friends before she was my girlfriend. We're a funny couple. Many times we laughed to the tears for jokes only both of us understood. The issue was that I didn't like her, physically. She was cute, but definitely there was no chemistry on my side. She was incredible, and there was nothing bad about her. Maybe a few minor flaws. Like she used to smoke when she went out, and from now and then drank a bit more than what she should. Anyway, chemistry. Probably for 2 years I only dated her because she was amazing, compassionate, and I felt she was the best person in the world. But every day after being with her, I'd repeat to myself all the way home, you have to get out of this relationship. Every day. It was hard, because there was no reason why I wouldn't be happy with her. She was perfect, and in around 4 years of a relationship, I don't remember her making any mistake or giving me any reason not to be the happiest man in the world. But the day came, when I got enough courage to admit that I didn't love the perfect woman. Broke both of our hearts, but was the best decision. She's married now, and I'm married. I only wish the best for her, and I hope that in the bottom of her heart she can forgive me. Story 18. When the cops knocked on my door, she had been yelling at me for not cleaning the kitchen or something, and I was sitting at my computer trying to give her a breather. Apparently, she had called the cops during that time and told them that I had been hitting our son. 2 years later, and I've been cleared from all her BS claims, but she has the kids, the house, the stuff. Well, I have the debt. I'm still happier now than I was then, but in retrospect, there were a lot of warning signs that could have saved me time and money. Story 19. Marriage counselor. Okay, this first session has been informative. Let's meet again next week. Can we agree that in the meantime, neither of you will see other people? Me? Of course. Her? I don't think so. Marriage counselor. No, sorry, let me clarify. What I mean is, can we agree that neither of you will have intimacy with anyone other than each other before next week? Me. There's no way I would ever have intimacy with someone other than my wife. Her. Sorry, I don't think I can make that promise. Probably the most crushing moment of my life. Wow. So many kind and supportive responses. I wish I had read it back when this happened, about a decade ago. I feel bad that so many of you feel badly for me. I want to report that this awful experience was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. I've been happily married for 7 years to an incredible woman who smokes my ex in every conceivable way. My life today is so much better than the happiest day I had with my ex, and going through the mess of her betrayal is what helped me remember who I am and what I want out of life. If I had a time machine and the ability to go back and erase my time with my ex, I would keep every minute of it because it made me who I am today. Story 20. Not a girlfriend-boyfriend thing, but my best girl friend. I'm a guy. She would bring me with her to parties and I would watch her fool with tons of guys while the friends told me what a witch she was and I couldn't defend her. And then she would get in the car to go home and cry about how she missed her ex-boyfriend. I would go all out to make her happy because she was my best friend and I loved her. It wasn't a situation where I was wanting more. She tried with me prior and I told her I didn't want to, but rather I wanted the best for her. She repeatedly told me I was a crappy friend because I told her once in a while that she should ease off some of the things she's doing because it's hurting her. She would deny that some things between her and guys I know ever happened even though I was there to see it, and was mad at me for not believing her. I did so much for her. Drove hours to see her and talk to her when she was upset. I bought her birthday presents and spent time with her sitting on the couch doing nothing because I just loved hanging out with her. But she always put me down and said crappy things about me. It was like having the grief of a bad intimate relationship with none of the intimacy aspects. So one day when she pulled her usual crap, I just stopped talking to her and haven't talked to her since. Story 21. Years ago, I found out that my grandfather had had a heart attack or stroke and fell into the driveway, hitting his head while hanging out with an ex. Few phone calls, dropping her off, waiting at the hospital, funeral over the next few days, etc. Within hours of returning from the funeral at which I had been a pallbearer, I found out she cheated on me the previous night, the night before my grandfather's funeral. I'd been going out a little over a year and I was not exactly in a great emotional state at the time. She apologized and wanted to stay together, but I didn't have time for fake BS, so I ended with a statement, "We're done. Forever. Do not ever contact me again. The next time I even hear your name, it better be in an obituary. 10 out of 10 would do again." Happily married now to the woman of my dreams who I've known for a large portion of my life. Wanted to date, got the chance many years later through pure luck, and as chance would have it, I didn't screw it up. She's my entire world, and I couldn't ask for a truer partner with whom to share my life story. Life has a way of playing funny tricks on you. Story 22. I'd been together for the better part of a year. Specifically opened up my class schedule so that I'd have a few hours to talk to her in the middle of the day. I had a 2.5 hour commute to and from uni at this point, so those hours in the middle of the day meant I was getting home at around 11. So it was just easier for me to do my work at school. Let her know that if I wasn't texting or calling or responding during those hours, I was likely in the library trying to get work done. A month or so of this, it was fine, but she was getting bitter about how inconsistent I was being with that time I had normally dedicated to her. At the time, I felt it was fair, considering how much time was specifically dedicated to school and not her, but I couldn't really change much about that. So, second month into that schedule, I got an opportunity for a job for a dating site startup. Basically, all I had to do was walk around downtown San Francisco, handing out roses to cute girls during usual lunch hours. I was only going to be doing this for 2 weeks, and that was right in the middle of my free time, and I didn't have any big projects coming up, so I figured, hey, why not? Some easy cash that I can spend on her. Made the mistake of keeping the secret. For just 2 weeks of the 8 or 9 months we'd been together at the time, and suddenly I become this terribly neglectful person. Every other instance of me not being prompt or warning in advance when I knew I was going to be busy or out of town was brought up. I'd already bought the ring before any of the fighting started, so I just gave it to her then. Before, somehow I had found the clinginess endearing in some way. I was bland to how bad it actually was for too long. I had to actually think about it for a second. I spent 5 hours a day sitting on trains and buses to spend an equal amount of time in classes, and what little time I'm not doing either. I've either got to be doing something important or sleeping if I'm not actively talking to her. Basically zero time each day to just unwind and let my brain shut off while How It's Made plays on Netflix. Decide to tell her I need space. Oh hey, that was a mistake. I thought you loved me. Okay, let's try this again. I need some time to myself. What about me? Crap. I need some time to relax. So I stress you out? Well, yes. I want to unwind at the end of the day, not review any minuscule period of time I was unaccounted for. Why did you even buy me the ring? Because I felt like I was wrong before. But not now? No, I'm done. Goodbye. Cue cold turkey and 4 months of texts, emails, voicemails, Facebook messages, everything at all hours and zero response from me. Still felt like the bad guy, especially after she resorted to messages like, I'm feeling hot, just come make love to me, I won't even talk. Which, since left ignored, devolved into, I need you, I'm so sorry, I'll try to be better. All the time. 4 months. Snapped and finally just got a new phone number. Blocked every other form of contact from her and moved on. Story 23. I was actually in the middle of a breakup, but I was still in shock and trying to figure out if it was really happening. We had spent the night arguing and we were getting nowhere. Our problems were rooted in some pretty fundamental differences in lifestyle that had shown up later in our relationship, and even though we were trying to adapt, it was making us miserable. We lived in the same apartment, but after a while we gave up and went into separate rooms. The last thing she told me was, please don't hurt the cats. It was so out of left field, I spent the night thinking about it. Why would I want to do that? I loved our pets. They've never been violent in my life. Did she think I was the kind of person who could do that? Either she had never known me for the past 2 years, or more likely, she had turned me into somebody in her mind different than who I really was. Maybe it was her way of making it easier for herself. Either option scared me. Up until then, I had thought about trying to fix things, or at least being friends still, but that stupid, ridiculous moment made me really look at what was happening. I was putting so much effort into the woman I loved, but that woman I loved was gone. She was replaced by somebody I didn't know, who dated a version of me I'd never met. To everybody that relates to this, it's just as easy to vilify somebody as it is to vilify them back for feeling they did it to you. Try hard to remember the positives, because it's sometimes human nature to fixate on the negatives to feel justified in your feelings. Story 24. Long story, but it starts like this. Sitting on the couch, the TV turned down at her request. I knew something was coming. The Christmas holidays had been awkward and she had been distant the whole time. It wasn't the best of breaks, but I hadn't let the feelings glide by. I'd asked her straight out on Christmas Day if something was wrong. I never once felt like I couldn't trust her completely, but for the first time in 14 years, my gut was telling me something was going on. It was so cliche, too. Sudden furtive behavior around her phone, guilty glances from wherever she happened to be tapping away. She was tapping away a lot. And the funny thing is, up until the holidays, I thought things had been getting better. Another cliche. So I asked her. After opening presents with her family, her daughter wanted another push in the swing under the big oak tree in the garden, and I wanted an escape from the debris of Christmas wrapping, presents, and food. Waiting for lunch in the sun under the tree. Between pushes on the swing, she walked over, and I couldn't take it anymore. Push. I've never felt this way before. Push. I've always trusted you. Implicitly. Push. But my gut is telling me something is going on. Push. We're acting so differently. Push. Is there something going on? Push. Is there someone else? Push. Looking back now, the lie she told straight to my face without hesitation hurt as much as what was to come, especially considering what we'd been through. Story 25. When I came home to find her intoxicated beyond all comprehension, she then grabbed a weapon, came at me, and then began to harm herself, saying she was going to tell the police I was hurting her to get me arrested. She finally started harming herself with the weapon as I went outside and called the police. I had to tackle her and put her in psychological holding for 48 hours until she sobered up. After that, I tried to help her by offering to go to AA meetings and contacted her parents to come down to babysit her while I was at work to help keep her from binge drinking. They refused. I went to work, came home to find her car parked in the front yard, and she had downed almost a gallon of vodka that day alone. Called an ambulance. She was barely breathing. I got her back, put back in holding. I almost lost my job trying to juggle her and it. She finally went to a family member's house to stay for a few weeks to sober up. When she came back, she lasted 24 hours before doing it again, this time threatening to harm herself again. I called her parents and they blamed me, saying that she was living in sin by living with me and therefore prone to this behavior. I called my dad, told him to bring his truck and my brother's, threw my stuff in trash bags, told her to screw off and never saw her again. 2 months later, I met who is now my wife, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Story 26. Last month, the paramedics had to be called because my boyfriend, 21, the 5.5 years took too much or too frequently stuff. He didn't have to go to the hospital, but had a nice chat with the paramedics that his mom and I thought might wake him up. The past month I've been struggling with whether or not to end this, thinking about how I'd have to be the one calling paramedics, cleaning up his messes, whether or not I want to raise children with him, etc. Since then, I've been a bit distant while he's been super excited and all, I want to marry you and be with you forever. It's been a really, really hard, stressful month for me, wondering if I was in a slump or just not all that into him anymore. I've been giving him plenty of intimacy without wanting it myself, and he still wants more. After a small chat where I didn't bring up my fears, I decided to try giving him another chance to see if it was a slump I could work through. It said that I could talk to him about anything, so I thought if they got worse, I could strike up the nerve to have that chat. Well, it's Saturday morning at 4 a.m., less than 24 hours after I'd seen him, and 36 hours after deciding to give him a second chance. His mother called me to tell me that he's in the hospital, unconscious, and they didn't know if he would make it out. He has since gained consciousness, is in seclusion in the psych ward under 24-hour watch. Since the call, I've slowly begun breaking up with him on my own, straightening out my thoughts so we can have a proper talk when he gets out. It's going to be hard, but I don't plan to break up with him until he's out of the hospital because I just don't think he needs extra piled on top. Or should I do it while he has access to the psychiatrist? Advice would be appreciated on this one. I care about him very much, and I want him to be happy. All I'm doing is enabling this behavior by sticking around while he does this stupid stuff. I feel like this is really crappy timing and that I should have done it before this happens because now it looks like I'm abandoning him. But at 21, I don't need to be worrying about my healthy boyfriend passing away in the hospital. I don't want to be the one calling everyone next time he coded and possibly passes away. I do not need that crap in my life. I'm going to tell him that we both have some growing up to do and we can possibly reconvene at a later date, but I just can't stick around while he hurts his family and me like this. Story 27. I honestly put her through more than she deserved. She was a great girl, perfect girlfriend, honest friend, decent human being. I was at a point in my life where I myself didn't deserve to be with someone. I was going through a lot of life changes and didn't know how to cope with them, so I took them out on her. I didn't like myself and I didn't like what I was putting her through, so I ended it. That was almost 9 months ago, and in retrospect, we dragged out the relationship longer than it needed to be, on both our parts. I was just the one who was the bravest and let it go. Sucks, but hey, I hope the best for her, and now I know what is appropriate in a relationship and what is not. So he was a bad boyfriend, knew he was a bad boyfriend, and then, drumroll, dumped her? Groundbreaking. Story 28. I currently live with my ex. Started as roommates, as strangers, fell in love hard and quickly. Was happier than I've ever been with a woman. I lived pretty happily for the first 6 months, but as time went on, she kept bringing up other women that I was talking to. I had no idea who she meant. She'd bring up the most random things I said to the most random girls I knew. Dumb old me didn't realize for a couple weeks that there should be no way she would know any of that, albeit it was a very innocent conversation. Figured out she was snooping in my crap whenever I went to the gym. That was about the point that I realized it was time to give up. When I had to put passwords on my phone and computer, was that when I actually gave up? Of course not. So, more and more insecure crap from her until one day I was looking for her and all I could find was her phone on the counter. Figured if someone was paranoid about you cheating, they're probably cheating. Funny thing is, I knew exactly who to look for. Went to her messages, scrolled through countless guys' names till I got to Paul, read them, scrolled through more names till I saw Chris. Read those too. Turns out she was with these two guys that were mutual friends. I don't even know what she wrote to those other 50 to 60 guys. Didn't really matter. I was livid. But that was when I gave up, right? Course not. So I forgive and continue living in my jail cell, and we continue to fight every other day. My breaking point was finally when she threatened me and grabbed my wine key. I bartended off my desk and held it to my face with the craziest eyes I've ever seen. Stormed out of my room and texted my best friend that he should look out for me because she's going to terminate me and knows people to get her out of the country. That was when I knew it was over. The last 3 months have consisted of me putting up with her BS. She's finally leaving this week. The silver lining is that she screwed with my heart so much that there's any emotion to feel once she's gone other than pure joy. Pray that I don't get wrecked until then. Story 29. Don't do long distance, folks, especially if you're between the ages of 16 to 30. Life is too short to spend it missing someone. You want to enjoy your youthful years with real people, not a Skype phone call. I also don't believe in the one. I think there are an infinite number of awesome relationships waiting around. When you're older, pick one. It doesn't matter which, and commit to loving that person for the rest of your life. Don't make that huge life commitment at an early age, though. Instead, meet as many beautiful and awesome women or men as you can. You don't need to sleep with them, but by forcing yourself to put it out in the line for many different people, you build up your self-confidence and learn how to appreciate all the different types of people out there. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.